everyone.
Get on with it.
Welcome to the Rebellion's... Fucking hell, you ruined my intro, Tom.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's a great start, isn't it?
Super real.
All right.
Look, I'm already... No, you gotta keep it in. Keep it in the recording. It's a great start. Look, this is how I'm going to invade the EU podcast from now on. Just get on with it.
All right. But I'm adding this too. I will add this in too. Fuck you, Dom. All right, let's go. All right. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Rebellion's Edge podcast. This time about psychological horror. What up? I'm Martin. But you guys already knew that probably. And today we have some interesting people here. I'm gonna allow them to introduce themselves. So we have Dom here. What's up?
Hi, I'm from the North American server, and I usually go on North American content.
Yes, he also ruined my intro. Fuck you.
Yeah!
Fuck.
To be honest, he made it better.
Doper! He's back.
Hello! I'm here.
Mr. DS Shadow Pyro, what's up?
It's Pyro. I moved between the EU and the North American servers.
Yes. He's a cool guy. Just know that. Relogs!
Good evening.
Yes. Also, before we continue, Relogs, what do you think of pregnant
Fuck
Asian
you.
women? Yeah,
What?
before I was done. We'll talk about it later.
Fucking...
There's gonna be people in the comments asking about that, you know.
Yeah. Shadow, what's up?
Yo, what's up, guys?
Yay, what's up?
Yay.
And Mr. Yojo, how are you doing?
I am a motherfucking JoJo reference.
Fuck's sake.
Alright.
Alright. So before we begin, the Asian pregnant woman, right? Relogs here played a game called Home Sweet Home, which also actually has with horror to do, so that's why we can mention it. And he was so scared the entire time that this pregnant Asian lady ghost from The Grudge was gonna get him. It was so funny. You guys should check that stream out on his channel. Alright, but let's get on with it. So, number one, I guess. Alright, so let's start off by talking about your experience with the aspects of psychological horror in video games. What
titties?
Titties?
Titties! Ghost titties!
It took us this long to notice the freaking spelling error.
No. So here's the thing. The first
to a lot of cool things thanks to titties.
The first time I read this thing, I noticed that. I didn't want to say anything because I wanted this to happen when we started the podcast.
Alright. What titties and prospects introduced you to this level of horror initially?
Oh, jeez.
Alright.
Who wants to go first?
Dom.
I'll go first.
Might as well go down the list.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So I'm gonna really be talking about this in a very broad perspective because I haven't experienced too many psychological horror games, but I know about a few. But I guess a best example would be obviously is Silent Hill, because Silent Hill really has to deal with a lot of like psychological aspects and very different. There's a lot of meaning to everything that you see in that game, whether it be very psychological or spiritual in some sense. So initially, I would say like Silent Hill 2 would be that game that introduced me to that sort of experience.
All right, nice. Does it have titties though?
Yes.
Not the kinds that you would want to play with.
Or
Oh,
maybe
that's true.
You do.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah, I
no,
didn't read. Sorry. I didn't really get into actual like real legit horror games till like really late. I played the usual games like the Dead Space, the Amnesias, the Resident Evils. I did play and I enjoyed them, but honestly, the first game that I played that tackled any sort of like actual psychological horror instead of just jump scares, monsters. I think that was a game called Sanitarium. I don't know if any of you've heard of that.
Oh,
It-
I
I
know about
played that game. That game is so good. I
Yeah,
love
it is a top-down, like point-and-click adventure game where you play as an amnesiac person who wakes up in a very, very strange sanatorium with amnesia, because of course every game has to start with amnesia. And the only thing he really remembers that his car crashed, and now he has to figure out what's going on, where is he, why is everything so strange and out of place. And as the game progresses, it becomes clear that you're actually like playing or reliving like parts of this man's like either child memories or fantasies. You go into like his childhood traumas. You go into like things like comic books that he used to read, and it's all incredibly like interesting in like a sort of the allegories for what he's trying to accomplish and what he's trying to remember.
Yeah, it's almost 2 decades old now as well.
Yeah.
But
It
it's
is a
really well.
really old game, like, but it's I think it still holds up.
I recommend you people listening out there actually get it on Steam or Good Old Games. Get the Good Old Games version. That one's like perfect.
Hmm.
I think it's like what, $5 now?
I actually recommend that game as well. It's aged very well. It's a good game, you know. All right. Has anyone got anything else, or should I go?
No, I've got one. My one's the same as it's gonna be Silent Hill. That was the first real psychological horror game that I actually played. I did a bit of time on Resident Evil, but really I actually had the demo for the game Metal Gear Solid, and it came with the demo of Silent Hill. And I just remember playing it and ended up in the hospital with the nurses with the titties. And like it was me and 2 of my guys just playing the game like legit daylight, and we were scared shitless and ran out of bullets, hopping away and everything. And next thing you know, there's this nurse just biting our ankles, and we screamed and turned the game off. And from that point on, Silent Hill's legit been one of those games. I actually avoid psychological horror games as much as possible, but there are a few that catch me. But Silent Hill was my first one that made me go, "This shit's real."
All right.
Martin,
Yes.
you wanna go?
A part of me wants to go now, but does anyone else have anything to say first? Because
Well, it's your name on the list.
I have a lot of them. Let's just say.
Oh, did Jojo want to go, or did he already go?
I figured I would go last since I'm at the bottom of the. I figured we were going in order on the list here, so I figured I'd go last or something.
All right. I'll go then. But obviously the elephant in the room, Silent Hill. Specifically 2. I borrowed that when I was 9, and I booted it up, and so I had this rule back when I was 9 then, right, that I could not play PG games. So, but I borrowed this fucker from my friend, all right. So I had to keep it hidden, and whenever I did actually turn it on, to play it, I was scared shitless. I think I only made it 2 or 3 hours in when I played it, and then I just fully stopped because I was scared shitless. You know, imagine 9-year-old me playing Silent Hill 2. It wasn't that fun, you know.
I can relate to that.
Now going back to it though, it's just a great game. Yeah, that was
Great.
my relogs.
All right, I'll go then. Mine first one's gonna be the same as like everyone's, Silent Hill 1. But my story about it is, as always, if I have a story about a game first time playing it, it's because of my brother, as always. So I guess the game. He's a big fan of horror games. Always been. I can't play horror games. I've never been able to play horror games. I just can't do it. And that first time, I couldn't do it either, because my brother told me that it was a fun game with like balls and shit, like beach balls and stuff, like a kid's game. I was like, cool, that sounds really fun, because I was like 10, but shit, it wasn't. I couldn't sleep that night.
Was it the first one?
Yeah.
Oh, poor you.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know that.
Yeah. Wait, so did you like experience the part where Harry walks into the alleyway and he sees the guy like hung up in barbed wire and shit? And it's like all dark in the alleyway.
Oh no.
Let me tell you this. My brother forced me to play that game, like the entire game. He forced me to play it. I was not allowed to leave until the game was finished.
Was he holding you hostage or something?
Yes. Basically.
This guy.
Finish this game or I'll put a cap in your ass.
You want to play a little game?
Oh, it's Jigsaw now. Jigsaw forces someone to play Silent Hill.
To put it
Jigsaw is
more like
Relog's
in a
older brother. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, to put it like a more believable sense, that in another podcast where I played about PlayStation 2, I told you that my brother broke my rib because he wanted me to play a game.
It makes
He
a lot more
legit
sense
jump
now.
kicked me to get me to play that game. I mentioned that in that podcast too. So yeah, my brother is a bit fucked up and me.
He seems like a nice guy.
Totally.
Yes. Alright, Shadow, what do you got?
Well, gonna be the odd one out, I guess, because my first kind of game of this variety wasn't Silent Hill, because I didn't seek out that kind of game back then. Basically, I was brought to this genre with a game I thought was not of that genre. Basically, I bought Fear because I thought it was a shooter. And
It is a shooter.
turns out Fear was not really just a shooter. That was me, dumb, I don't know, 12, 15-year-old thinking, yeah, that's another Call of Duty type of game.
Wait.
I don't know.
First
Oh,
one?
good job.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I never played any horror games before. I never really sought them out. So
Scariest one.
yeah, I know. That's great. Especially if you go into it thinking it's like a standard kind of shooter thing. I know the name should have clued me in, but yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I did that too.
Yay! I'm not the only idiot. That's good.
I did that too, but with Fear 2.
Fear 2 is more of a shooter than Fear 1, though, so that's fair.
Oh yeah, but I was older than 9-year-olds, so I could play it. I could play it. It was scary shit though.
Yep.
Yo, what do you got?
All right. Of course, I'm gonna mention Silent Hill 2. Me being the big Silent Hill nerd and all. I also did like Sanitarium for the psychological stuff because the guy was going through a big like dream world trying to reconstruct his identity and his past, and when you learn about it, it's those games kind of horror where you just see the thing like the mirror room in Silent Hill 3. I don't know if you guys remember that one with the mirror that would blacken up and your reflection would stop. It was that kind of fear where like you don't know what the hell is going on, but you're simultaneously repulsed but attracted to it. Like I'm sure a lot of you who played a lot of people in here who played Silent Hill 2 and saw and when you saw Pyramid Head behind those bars in the apartment complex, you're like, holy fuck. That's the kind of psychological horror I really love, the kind that makes you feel something, you know. That's why I liked Silent Hill 2 the most, along with Sanitarium. I don't know if you guys ever played this one. It's called Dream Web. It was a DOS point and click game from like 1994. You played that?
Nah.
Heard of it, but never played it.
Yeah.
It's those kind of games where the atmosphere itself gives you the chills. I love it.
Yeah. Also, we're probably gonna play Silent Hill on here a lot.
Yeah, it's. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is the ultimate go-to psychological horror game, in my humble opinion. So
Yeah, that
I can't really
series,
blame you.
It's probably the elephant in the room, right? It's the one that's gonna be brought up constantly. It's the best.
Probably the most well known.
Yeah, well
I mean,
known,
That and
really
Alan
good,
Wake.
You know. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, was that everyone? I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to number 2 then. What was the most memorable psychological horror moment you experienced in a video game that has a particularly well done set piece that no one else replicated? Any game with these elements count. So I'm gonna start this one so that no one steals it from me, because I can do that. And I'm gonna say the mirror room in Silent Hill 3. Yeah, because I've not seen that done ever again, I believe. At least not in a video game. And the first time, it was just like such a memorable, good fucking scene. Because, all right, for those that have not seen this scene, there is a room in Silent Hill 3 you can go inside. All right, and when you go in there, in the beginning it's just the reflection of the main character Heather, but all of a sudden some weird shit on the other side of the mirror starts coming out of the sink, and it begins covering the room, right? And it keeps covering the room, and unless you leave the room quick enough, you get stuck in there, and it's just like, and it will just keep covering the room until you just die. You know, it's a great scene. It's very cool. I've not seen it done before, and my description of it is awful, but just look it up. You know. Alright, that was me.
For me, actually, it would probably be from like Silent Hill 1. Because I mentioned this part earlier where you play as Harry, and you're just you're walking through the alleyway, and the camera just kind of like swivels around, and it's really like weird the way that it does it. But I think it kind of works in that effect because like things are about to get like really shaken up and drastically change from when you initially started the game. You know, you walk in and everything starts getting like really darker, and Harry pulls out a lighter, and you're just essentially just following a trail of blood, and that trail of blood leads you to a hanging body in the middle of a small dark alleyway that you can't get out of. And it's just so weird because you just look at that and you think like, who in the fuck would have all of this time to not only murder somebody, like fucking mutilate their entire body and then hang them on a fucking chain link fence with barbed wire? And I think what makes that scene even better too is that like you try to leave and you can't. You're basically trapped in a cage and you get murdered by weird faceless children with small knives, which is like great because it all turns out to be obviously a dream sequence, but it's really great. Like it really sets the tone for what the game is really going to be like from there on out. Oh god.
Yeah, I remember playing that because, as I've said before, like the only Silent Hill game I've actually like played and finished was Silent Hill 1. And I remember like playing that one scene, that particular scene was like really, really strong. Like it was the way that like the camera worked, where it would like tilt up as you were going into the alley, and suddenly like you turn around and suddenly there are these weird like children with knives start stabbing you, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? What the hell?
Yeah.
You can barely defend yourself, and like that was a really good like opening for a game like that.
Yeah. I do have a question for all of you guys though, because I'm not sure if this game would technically count, but what is it with Eternal Darkness? Because that game had like that whole mechanic with the sanity meter. One of the I guess like fourth wall breaking mechanics that I guess you could technically say it could work maybe is them like saying, oh, we're gonna delete your save data, and like it like the screen like blue screens and all that shit, dude. It's like I feel like when they break the fourth wall and try to bring some of the horror in reality, it's like that's even better.
Yeah, that's an amazing game.
I have a
like
funny story,
but the problem I had with it was that by the time I got to that game, everyone had already talked about it to death, to the point of where it just wasn't scary or anymore.
Yeah, in my humble, even though I haven't played Eternal Darkness because I don't have a GameCube, like that's one of the games that I heard, like if you want to enjoy it, just don't listen to people talk about the scary stuff in it, only ruin it. I do have a funny story about that game. A friend of mine, you know how there's the moments when your sanity goes down and like bugs will crawl on the screen? Like one time my friend was playing it, he was by himself, and he told me that happened for the first time. So he grabbed a shoe and threw it at the TV.
I have a somewhat memorable horror game moment that I still remember being incredibly bad for my health, and that is the hotel chase scene from the video game Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth.
Oh
yes.
no!
I know you've played. You guys, some of you guys have played it. I think you remember like just how incredibly like hectic and like nerve-wracking that scene is, where like the denizens of Innsmouth have decided, you're just going to have to die in your sleep, but you're just frantically trying to like escape through other hotel rooms, trying to lock doors and trying to push cabinets and closets against doors so that they can't come in. And as you're doing that, like other guys are like in the room next door trying to like claw and bang at the door that you just locked. You have to like, and it's just all, and like even moving the closets are just at such an incredibly excruciatingly slow rate. And you can hear them like trying to like bash in the door behind you, like screaming, "Oh, he's in the other door! Check the other door! Check the other door! It's not locked!" and stuff. And you're like, you're just bolting. You finally get out of there, and they start shooting through the windows, and they start coming out through other buildings, and you have to like just. I think I died like 10 to 12 times the first time I've played it. I remember the first time I actually got through that. I had to pause that game for at least like 5 minutes because like I was out of breath. That was so incredibly scary. Not even just for any sort of just psychological, but more just the idea of like they are just coming for you. And
yeah, man, That scene definitely gave. You're playing a very in-depth game when it starts tapping into your adrenal gland a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, when it's like, oh god, I'm freaking out. Oh god, please push harder, push harder. Oh god, no, they're in the room. Oh god, oh, quick, bolt the door. Okay, get out. Find a way out. Oh,
Yep.
it is so incredible. Like, you're 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 absolutely on edge for like at least 15 minutes.
It's like playing Doom on the maximum difficulty.
Yep, and you're
Yeah,
trying,
but
you're trying to dodge
in
elevators
Doom,
and shit.
you have a gun. Like in that game, it takes like several hours before you even get a pistol.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's a very good game, though. I recommend it.
It is.
It's
It has a lot.
It's really good.
It has a lot of bugs, and I know, especially like the PC Steam version is notorious for being extremely buggy. I'd recommend, if you can, try getting it on the Xbox version, which apparently is slightly less buggy.
Yep.
But yeah, it is a rough game. Really big problems, especially at the latter half when you get a lot more guns and it turns a lot less scary and more like just kind of annoying shooter. Some of the mechanics don't quite work, but yeah, I still think it's worth it just for that one scene.
Isn't that game getting like a remake or reboot? Actually,
I know they're making a new Cthulhu-esque game. I've seen a couple of trailers, seen some of the artwork, but that is a completely different game. It's not a
okay.
I think it's made by a completely different developer too.
Yeah.
I believe there's some Call of Cthulhu games, and all of them are pretty different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I think the Call of Cthulhu game he was talking about was based on the Shadow of Innsmouth game, the board game. I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Dark Corners of the Earth.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was doper.
Yeah.
Pyro, you got anything for us?
Yeah, my one's actually Alan Wake. Like, so I'm pretty sure that comes under psychological horror for how it's
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I think at the end of have any of you played Alan Wake like all the way through?
I
haven't.
I barely. I gotta get back on it. I bought it on Steam for like $2 one day.
Yeah. So what I'm saying might be spoilery. I'm not sure, so I'm gonna try and keep it as light as possible. But basically, you're near the end of the game, and you've pretty much figured out what's going on. Like, you all know the premise that he goes to Bright Falls, I think it is, and he's got writer's block and he needs to go away, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to write something when I go to this area because all the artist people go there. So he's out there now, figured out everything. Near the end of the game, you're running up this huge like hill mountain type thing, but like literally the sky is falling down. And like the narrator, I think it's Alan, or it might just be a guy in the narrator, like it is in American Nightmare, saying exactly what's going on. So you've got like cars and cows and everything just like flying all around you, and they're hitting the ground. And at one point, a large cargo ship container just drops right in front of you. And I literally lost my shit at that point. I was like, this is amazing. This is absolutely crazy. More games need to be like this, like getting you involved. Like you're reading a book, but you're also in the game as well. And it's just crazy how that something like that's probably simple and it probably happens in movies all the time. But for a video game, for me, that did that type of action for psychological horror was just amazing. And like even later on in the game, crazier things happen. But that part where it just drops in front of you and you're just moving through, just running, trying to survive because everything's like possibly going to drop on your face. It was just a really nice touch to have something so close to you and not kill you. And then hopefully when you guys get to the rest of the game, you guys actually witness the same thing, because it might have just been a random thing where it just dropped that way. But when it gets there, you know what I'm talking about. And it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Alright, awesome. Relogs, what do you got?
I think I'll go with a certain scene from Amnesia. What was it called? What Machine for Pigs? What is it? The second one?
That's
Anyone
the
know?
second one, yeah.
All right, yeah. So like, there's a scene in there, like I think it's relatively early in the game where like you get to know some people. Like you have like a room, like 4 different rooms with 4 different people, and you get to know their sins and what they've done, and then you get to choose if they should live or die, and they get like tortured to death. And after you made all your choices, you get to find out who everyone was. That fucked me over a little bit at the end when you
Yeah.
found everything out.
Wasn't that the DLC for The Dark Descent though?
No, it was the DLC. It's called Amnesia.
Yes.
Machine for Pigs. It's in the beginning. Yeah.
Huh?
No, that's the Machine for Pigs. For pigs. That's how it begins, isn't it? Or is it Justine?
I think it's Justine actually. Is that the one where a
might be.
woman talks to you? Where
It might be. Yeah.
yeah, then it's Justine. That one was awesome though. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That
Was
moment
it the
fucked
one
you up.
that while you were trying to figure out what's happened there, random monsters could appear and you'd have to hide?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, that's Amnesia in a nutshell. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
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 I'll get
But
to
yeah,
that game later.
Justine then.
You get it with the Dark Descent entirely free. It's great.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, my first one, or my most memorable one, is actually also from Amnesia, but from the first one, The Dark Descent. It's kind of a personal thingy almost, because like at the very beginning, I think, or almost at the beginning, there's a part where we go into the cellar, and it's like semi-flooded, and
Oh, shit, yeah.
as soon as you like step into the water, you see something moving towards you in the water, like some splashes and shit, and you have to hop onto, like, I don't know, like crates and stuff. And I don't know, for me that really fucked me up, that whole level, because I have some kind of weird phobia that when I'm in water and something touches my leg, I get fucking scared. And I almost drown because I go into like a shock mode or something. So that was really fucking crazy for me,
Oh,
because
wow.
there's also like most of the level you can jump like from crate to crate, or you just hop into water for just a second and go like on another object. But at the very end, there's like a huge long stretch where you just have to run and hope it doesn't catch you, and you hear it come closer behind you. You hear that splashing sound getting closer and closer, and you have no idea what the hell that thing even is. But yeah, that thing that fucked me up. Like,
I remember
the
the
worst
part. No,
shit
but
ever.
the also the other thing I remember first Amnesia is much later. You're in a completely different area, and at one point you have to walk through water, and suddenly behind you you hear the same steps,
yes,
and
it
there's
comes
nothing
back.
there. But for that one like split second, you're like, "Oh God, it's back!"
Yeah, it's a flashback moment. It's so great.
But yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there, Shadow. When you touch the water, the panic you feel, you run, you sit and run with your legs, like you like stomp the floor running.
Yep.
I remember that as well.
At the beginning, you try like cheeky stuff, like always having a crate and carry it around with you, and then throwing it and try to jump on it. You know, just to do the like cheeky jump and run thingy. But at one point, you have to say, "Yeah, no, I need to run now."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good game.
Indeed.
Yes. What happened to Pyro?
He's like dropping in and out.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, he dropped. Yeah, he now he's back again.
Pyro, you okay there?
Yeah, I'm good. It just suddenly shot out. I'm back.
He's a spy. That
What up?
Pyro's a spy.
Oh.
Alright. Yojo, what do you got?
All right.
Yojo?
Oh, it's not me then. Good.
Well,
Okay.
Hang
That
on,
was a short
sorry.
tweet.
I forgot to unmute my microphone. My bad. I was coughing, so I muted it. Anyway, the most memorable psychological horror moment, I would have to say probably from almost at, I'm going into spoiler territory for this one, so bear with me. In Silent Hill 2, when you when you put all the pieces together towards the end and you find out the real purpose of Pyramid Head, because towards the game, Pyramid Head is going all throughout the game. Like occasionally he'll attack you, other moments he'll just be out in the distance or appear in a cutscene or whatnot. But it's like he's always chasing him, trying to get him. And when James realizes, the crime he committed, that's when he realized, the Pyramid Head was there, because the Pyramid Head is a apparition based on the character James's desire for punishment for the crime that he did. And deep down, he wanted that, he desired that because of what he did. But as he's going throughout the game, it's not even a forefront of his head. It's in his mind. He's just, I gotta find Mary. And that's just the town's, part of him that, trying to get him to admit his problems, his crime. And so after he did that, the Pyramid Heads commit suicide, and he goes up, and then he goes on the top of the building, and depending on what ending he gets, he figures out the answer to all of it, and either goes on or commits suicide or something else.
That's fucked up, dude.
Yeah.
Also a great game.
Fun fact about that ending, Guy Seehey, the voice actor that voiced James, actually really likes the water ending. So, and I know that's for most people is like the definitive and fan favorite ending of that game.
Right. I heard the main reason that not only that, how Guy Seehey says he considers it to be his favorite. They had a Silent Hill 2 novelization in Japan where that was the ending of the book. So it's those two that solidify the fact that James, that and Silent Hill 4, when you find out that James, who is the apartment superintendent's son, disappeared several years ago. So that implied, yep, he did take his own life.
Yep.
He's a tragic character, James.
It's pretty dark.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It's a good game as well.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is. All right. We spent way too long on this topic.
Yep.
That's
Let's
what
move on.
psychological horror will do to you.
Yep. All right. So
Analyze and
It'll
discussion.
linger.
what are your thoughts about the common criticism that psychological horror in gaming tends to have an effect that its usefulness wears off after one playthrough? What do you think should be done to prevent this trope and keep this scares constant? I don't know. I feel like, to me at least, the thing that wears off the most is whenever the problem with making a game, right, is that if you make a memorable scene, people will talk about it, right? And what it comes down to is that, for example, Eternal Darkness, right? That mechanic about deleting your save that we talked about earlier. So many people prior told me that was going to happen. So when I played it and it actually happened, it wasn't effective at all. Because I've been told by people prior, so all of a sudden that game was ruined, But that's the only thing I have that ever comes close to that. Other than that, I don't really know what to say yet, at least. So yeah. Yeah, what it comes down to is what Redog said in our chat here. #stop spoilers. There you go. Although we are guilty of that as well now, so we're hypocrites because we did this podcast about it.
Oh yeah, we should put a huge spoiler warning at the beginning of this.
Or if they walked in here, they'll be fine. They should be aware of that ahead of
Yeah,
time.
probably.
I think maybe like like Martin was saying, like if you make a memorable scene, people kind of stick to remembering it and talk about it a lot. But I think like as far as like the smaller stuff, like just maybe like hearing footsteps or hearing like voices and stuff like that, I think maybe if they like tied that to adaptive difficulty, maybe like and maybe just because we were just talking about Eternal Darkness with like the sanity meter and stuff, maybe like have something like that where depending on how sane your character is, maybe certain things will get impacted or certain things will change in your environment, and each playthrough can end up different depending on how well you take care of that character as you play along through the game, or just leave them completely insane throughout your entire playthrough. So I think adaptive difficulty, and then maybe multiple endings for more replay value to kind of justify going back and showing a completely different scare you might not have had initially. That could happen just because you've made a different set of choices and stuff like that.
Definitely.
I suppose putting a somewhat amount of randomness into a game, if done well, can also have a good effect of like making the terror or the danger seem unpredictable.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that, I think, because just imagine it from the perspective of a game developer. Let's say you do something like a random scare director, like, I don't know, like the Left 4 Dead AI director that adaptively changes the level based on what you're doing. So now let's do that with horror. Let's say you have like 10 different cool, scary scenes that you have in your pool, and then per playthrough it chooses like 2 or 3 of those. Now the problem with that is, if somebody is unlucky and he gets like 2 or 3 scenes he does not really like, then he will probably not play it again. And then from the developer standpoint, he has not seen all of the game because the things that he has seen didn't really hit the mark, It's just a weird thing that you make it random what kind of content the user is going to see, and if he doesn't like it, then he will not like the game. It's a bit of a problem. Randomness could be a solution, but it has to be done really, really well, that you're not turned off after the first playthrough, that you want to play it.
It seems like it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation, where it's like you can do it, but it's all a matter of making it done well. So it's like there could be some benefit to it, or there might not be. It's probably a kind of case-by-case basis sort of thing. And maybe it doesn't have to be necessarily entirely random, but definitely something that maybe certain choices can impact that sort of thing, I guess. Because I'm all about the idea of like seeing like choice, like player choice and stuff like that. So if something were to happen, that's all based on whatever the player chose to do. It shouldn't be like, because I think you mentioned like 10 different sort of scenes, right? So like I'm maybe not necessarily 10 different scenes, because I think coming up with like 10 would be a ridiculous amount and maybe too hard to do, but maybe like around half that amount to like 3 to 4, maybe 5 maximum, maybe. Where like maybe 2 of those are like variations of 2 other scenes, and one of them is like a very drastic difference. Something like that could easily work, I think.
Yeah, the thing is, you cannot randomize, of course, things that would impact the story too much. But what you could do, for example, what I could imagine, have like a ton of stuff lying around the level, for example, like other games have log entries and stuff. And I know there's players who totally will ignore these, and there are players who are going to read these things, maybe like a random newspaper article that's lying around in the level. And based on that, you could do stuff. For example, you'll read a news article about a scary situation, and then later in the game, because you have read that article, something will happen. And players who ignored that will not see that scene. that could kind of work, I guess. Yeah.
Actually, this isn't a psychological horror game, but maybe like pulling something from like Resident Evil 3, for example, with that game's RNG, where like if you do certain things in a specific order, perhaps that could change like what enemies you encounter and what you have to deal with.
Mhm.
So something like that, I think could work as well.
Yeah, no, I'm completely on board with Dom with that, and like everyone else said, the idea of the director as well. It's a great idea, but it is going to be hard to implement. But also with the sense of if you do certain things, then it affects it later. Like I think Quantum Break, which isn't psychological horror directly, but there's parts of it in it. They have certain things like if you do an action for something, like at the beginning of the game, there's a chalkboard when you're in the university, and if you finish the equation, it helps you out later on or something like that, and it changes the story, and or like a little scene. So you can get things like that, and I think for horror, it actually worked out quite well to do that. But it's tricky with trying to create like 3, 4, 5 scenes that would work for the exact reasons that were stated. That the one person may get the scene that they don't like, and they go through and they say, well, that wasn't that good. But then the next person will get that. It's literally 50-50 when it comes through to getting everyone happy, and it's just not going to happen even if there's only one scene. So I think an idea of implementing all of what we just said is probably the best thing you're going to be able to do, is have a split story kind of thing where they have certain set pieces that'll show up, like with Left 4 Dead, and that the game itself for Left 4 Dead doesn't change that much, but when you get a hunter coming at you or a smoker, that's something. So you could do something similar with a horror game where they randomly have the whoever you're going to be shooting or running away from or whatever at a certain point, and change that up, but still have your major set pieces still set where they are.
Yeah, they would have to do it some way like that, but it shouldn't end up too generic as well. Because in Left 4 Dead you can kind of tell that it's always random, but it's always random in the same way. So it's very generic feeling, but yeah, it's pretty hard to do, I imagine.
I think it suits Left 4 Dead as well for the type of games it is. You know definitely what you're going to get into. You're going to shoot some infected, and that's pretty much the end of it. It's just a question of what type of infected. So I think if you're doing horror, you're going to have to be really smart with it.
Yeah, I guess.
So, like, in my opinion, like what Dom's saying, that could work to some extent, but still, it's a psychological horror. That means that it's supposed to fuck with your head.
Yeah,
that type of thing will only work once. If you know it, that won't work again. But so the only thing is to make decisions, like Shadow said, if you pick something up, it will trigger something. But still, those will only work to some extent. Like, even if that happens, I don't think you'll play the game more than twice at tops.
Yeah, you're not going to go through like a 15-hour game just to see a 5-minute cutscene, or not even like a minute cutscene that was different from before. You're not going to do that. That's right.
Yeah, no, you won't. There's no way. And like, even if you have all those random shit happening all the time, everything will get to a point where you will get like immune to it.
But
I think that's kind of,
but like every game, I think no matter what, if you've played the game once, the shock of anything, if it's just a great action scene, it's going to wear off if you've played it already, or if someone's told you about it, oh, this scene's really good or something like that. If you know about it already, it's automatically worn off no matter what you try and do the next time.
I think I agree. It's like it would take away from that value of the same, but unless if it's like something that's entirely drastic, like as far as like going for the second or third playthrough, it's just for most casual players, they might play the game maybe once, twice is like pushing it, but after that they just go on to the next game. For people that really love the genre, I think they'll try to go for like all the different endings, all the different like situations and stuff like that. So I think that's a really hard question to ask, or rather, really hard question to answer, because there's no definitive answer for it. Like, there's a number of suggestions you can make for it, but there's no definitive way of stopping that from ever occurring, because I think we all agree on the point of no matter what you really do, eventually it will wear off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. The only way to get the game to be replayable is, like you said, to have like different choices that changes the outcome, like to make it like there's more than one game, so to speak, in one game. So if you do one choice, the game will change completely, or not just completely, it will just change a bit and do different things. That would, like, for the people who like the genre, they will most definitely, if everything's done good, they most definitely will replay for every single one. But for the general people, I don't think that's gonna happen, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
I think there's a game that does something like that. I can't remember what it's called, but it was on the PS2. It was, you play as a game who was like you play as a guy who was a prisoner in this prison, but he's one of those silent protagonists. You can't really, but it works in the favor of the story, because it's like by the end of the game you find out if he like killed his family or if someone else killed him and he tried to get revenge or something. Suffering, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a good example of what you were talking about, because I think like the choices that you make throughout the game change stuff that happens later on, like monster encounters, or if a prisoner's gonna, try to shiv you or something like that. I think that's how that game worked anyway. I played it once.
Yeah.
Alright,
But I think
sounds
we
good.
all pretty much agree with that changing, like having choices that changes everything.
Yeah.
Is the only thing that can make
Also-
it replayable.
It'll also make the development so much more complex and longer.
Yeah, they have to like make more than one game.
Adapt to 5 or 6 different combinations of player choices than if you make them like be either a binary or just not make a choice at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was a good discussion. But before we move on to number 4, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna read it, and then I'm not gonna contribute to this at all because I really have to take a piss. So
Okay.
Okay.
Right then.
Dog,
Executive
you take
decision.
lead till I'm back.
That's
Well, I can
interesting.
go take a piss and I'll go read it then.
All right. Thank you for being
Okay.
a bro, man. All right, I'll be back.
Okay, well then go take your lead. Anyway, I'm actually not gonna really contribute much to this question either. But how do you feel about fourth wall breaking aspects of psychological horror, acknowledging things that the player would easily notice when it came to manipulating your mind and video game experience?
It's a bit of a toss-up, really. 50-50. In
got
some games it
one.
works, in some games it takes you right out of the story.
Yeah, I've got one, but it's not really psychological horror. It was actually in Metal Gear Solid when going a bit Psycho Mantis.
Yes! That was
part
actually great.
That part was still very chilling nonetheless.
Yeah, kinda.
The character himself, Psycho Mantis, he's already crazy as is, and then for them to physically get you to put your controller into a different port, if that's not fourth wall breaking and chilling, I don't know what is.
Reading what's on your memory card. Yeah, that was
like
great.
Sweet coded.
And saying you don't save often. Like, you're right, I don't save often.
You like
Yeah,
a
that
lot of
was-
fighting games.
That was really good.
Exactly.
Wow,
When
he
that came
knows.
I like how he criticizes you as a warrior too. Like your skills as a warrior are poor. Like, oh shit, he knows that I suck at CQC.
Yes.
You
I
are
shoot
good at
everything and
avoiding
run.
traps. You are either very smart or you're a coward. That one made me laugh.
Yeah, like, so for that one, I think for me, when that happened, that's been the highlight. And like you said, in Eternal Darkness, it threatens about deleting your save game. But when that happened in that for MGS, that's the pinnacle. I don't think anything has topped it for me, because that was the first time, and everything else just seems to try and copy that for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. There was also another game, also not a horror game, but it was also kind of memorable for me. I don't know if anybody of you played Spec Ops: The Line.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've heard of that.
I have not played that. Was that on like the PlayStation 1 or something?
No, it's
Oh,
PlayStation
Xbox,
3. I
Yes.
think?
Yes,
PC.
PlayStation 3.
360 and PS3.
Yeah. It start out as a normal shooter kind of game, and then suddenly turns into this weird psychological fucked up scenario. And the coolest thing is in the loading screens at the beginning, it's like standard like tips, what you could do, what you should do. And then as the game goes on and you do more fucked up shit, the loading screen starts to judge you. Starts to ask you like fucked up questions like, how many Americans have you killed today? Was it worth it? Like fucked up shit like that. And that really stuck with me because that was one of the only games that I felt really miserable after finishing it. And that was actually likable in some weird kind of fucked up sense. But yeah,
Mhm.
and I also played through it like 3 times to see all the things that you could notice, because there was
Yeah.
hints all over the game at the start of the game even that could have tipped you off, but you didn't look for it. So yeah, that was kind of fucking weird for fourth wall breaking. But yeah, some games just can't pull it off. Some games will take you right out of the experience if they do that.
Mhm.
Hmm.
It's really kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, definitely 50-50 on that one.
I think Spec Ops did a good job of that. Like, do all of you know the ending of Spec Ops?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never played
Partly,
it.
yeah.
Then I won't say the ending, but if what Relog said, what it's absolutely true. If you know what happens at the end and then going through it again, you feel like shit.
Oh yeah. I mean, you feel like shit the first time around with the
Yeah.
white phosphor shit. From that point on, it's just a downward spiral, basically,
Yeah.
and it's not going to end. It's so fucked up.
I do remember that scene, and as fucked up as that part was, and as fucked up as I felt afterward, I felt kind of cheated because the game was clearly telling me, okay, you have to do this, you have to you have to shoot the white phosphor at this location in order to progress. So it's like, okay, game, I did what you asked. Why are you telling me that I'm a piece of shit?
That's the clever thing. You had another option. You could just have stopped playing. That's basically what the game is telling you. You should stop playing it.
But I want to kill all the people. Stop playing.
Stop playing. Thanks for $50. Stop.
It's sending you mixed messages. Actually,
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
I think that could definitely work. Bringing it back to psychological horror, like if they do that where they give you a protagonist, maybe that you root for initially, but then as you play, you find out more about their character, but it's so subtle, like it's in your face and you can see it, but you don't really understand it. And then once you like beat the game, it's like, I was a piece of shit the entire game.
Yep, that's exactly Spec Ops: The Line. That's exactly it.
Yeah,
I think-
like
I was the monster.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Different reference.
Nice.
In Assassin's Creed 3, they do that quite well at the beginning as well. So if you can pull something like that in a psychological horror game,
Yeah. Well, Assassin's Creed is honestly the one where I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, oh really? I'm with this organization, and there's this other organization that we won't call, but we're enemies. And I'm like, gee, I wonder if I'm the Templar all along. And then 8 hours later, oh, gee, I was the Templar all along. I never saw that coming.
it was a big shock for me, and that's why I said it.
Okay, well, at least you got that. I didn't.
Yeah. But I think if you can pull that off in a psychological horror game like Spec Ops did, but put it in a horror environment, you've got a good thing on your hands.
Yeah, I definitely agree to that.
Ah,
Who hasn't gone yet?
Martin
we-
hasn't. Unless if he wants to, if he doesn't have anything really to add, he can read the next question if he's
Oh,
here.
I
so
haven't
number
gone
5,
yet
right?
though.
Yeah, unless if you want to say anything about number 4.
Nah. Let's go to 5.
Well, I haven't gone yet for number 4. About
God
Oh, do
damn it.
you want to? Okay, go ahead, Jojo.
I would say like a good fourth wall break thing maybe would be like it would be like something that what's that the Wii game Shattered Memories, Silent Hill Shattered Memories tried to do where excuse me, I had to cough. Where we had where like as you play the game, as sections of the game go, you have Dr. Kaufman, the psychiatrist, talk to you and like ask you questions and like answer situations like how you're answering those little puzzle questions he gives you, and like stuff in the game changes depending on how you react, like how the monsters react, how the characters in the story react. I think that would be kind of a good way to kind of not only kind of get in your head and like get the game to apply to how you would react. But again, that's just how Shattered Memories tried to do it. I don't really know any other ways, any other good ways other than when Metal Gear Solid 1 did it. Like that was a way to give that boss battle not only a little bit more of like, oomph to it in an action game, but to kind of give a little bit of levity. Did you ever notice how fourth wall breaks in those moments are always have a little bit of a funny side to them?
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention the psychiatrist scene in Shattered Memories, because I think the only thing that the one that I kind of remember is the psychiatrist scene in Until Dawn. Any of you guys played Until Dawn?
I have not.
Not
Yes.
yet.
Okay. Yeah, that game. Okay, there's a lot of like horror tropes and other kind of weird ass things that happen, but to me, like the most fun part of that game were the interludes where the quote unquote you is sitting in the chair in the psychiatrist, and you have like therapy sessions with this guy, and like everything is just so incredibly weird and awkward, from his like facial animations with like kind of like overdone. The guy, I think it's
he just slams on the disc at one point. Like,
yeah, and
did I startle you?
Yeah, and he started asking questions like, okay, so which character do you like the least, and which character would you like to see die? And do you hate zombies? Do you hate snakes? And if you say, oh, I hate snakes, then at the next session there'll be a snake sitting right in front of you. And as the game progresses, like the locations change, like they become like more creepier, and like it's a really cool, and like there are like choices you can make that will affect both the game and later sessions.
Yeah, although it does semi reveal itself not to be fourth wall breaking at all later on.
It does,
but for the
like,
time, it's like.
Yeah, but there are like principle. Okay, but you're just playing a game. How are you feeling? Oh, you're hurting people now. People are dying. You still liking this game, huh? You like playing these games with people's lives, huh? You like that, huh?
Yeah.
Like that's something that like stuck to me. It's like an interesting for wall breaking. It's still being quite creepy and strange.
Yeah. Blame Ren for people dying.
Yes.
Hashtag blame Ren.
Yes, blame Ren.
Oh, Ren.
So that was it, right?
Yeah.
Number 5 out of 15.
Oh God.
What would be your favorite monster and character from any game influenced by psychological elements? Also, if they have a story behind them, then what makes them unique to you?
Pyramid Head.
Yeah, that would be the obvious choice, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah, I
No,
think because
I would-
I don't.
Oh, sorry,
No.
go ahead.
You could say
Pyro, go.
character too if you want to talk like about a playable character, a side
no, Pyro,
character,
go
or a
ahead.
villain or something.
If I don't know, I mean, because I don't dive too much into it, I think that like literally the most obvious one is going to be Pyramid Head for purely what he represents, which is the manifestation of what that person who he's after is most afraid of, most worried about, most guilty of. That's just what it's going to be, because I don't really have other ones to rely on. He's probably going to be my favorite. If it's going to be a character, probably Alan Wake, because he's a writer and I'm a writer, so I could relate to having writer's block and that kind of psychological part of it.
I don't know. For monster, I guess. What's that one monster in Silent Hill 3 that looks like a dick?
All of them are
the,
smart and
you
goes to
talking
the
about the first boss, the split
Yes,
worm?
it's actually symbolic for something later in that game that I won't spoil. But yes, it does have a purpose.
Okay.
I'm not gonna spoil
and
it
me
here,
being
but
me being the big Silent Hill
It's
nerd,
creepy
I
as
actually
shit.
know what you're talking about, and it
Yes.
makes sense.
it is creepy as shit. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think I would have to say character Alma Wade from Fear. Because-
Yeah.
She
That's
is
the
so-
little girl that you see occasionally, right?
Yes, because that's so fucked up. The fucking experiments, how she came to be, and how everything went out of control. You slowly start to uncover during the game. It's so fucked up.
I gotta
You
get
mean
that
young
game
Alma
on
or
Steam
older Alma?
sometime.
Yeah, it's really good. I should also play it again because I forgot a lot about that game. It was a long time ago. But yeah, she's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, little girls always are.
Oh yeah.
Just as Relogs.
What? I don't know if I have like a favorite monster or any sort of like. I guess if the first thing that comes to my head is maybe the necromorphs from Dead Space, like through the way like they how they came to be, how they work, you know, that how they that's something like that is honestly quite frightening, the way like body horror work. I don't know. I don't think I have any real like interesting story or anything about that. I just think that's creepy.
What I find creepy about the necromorphs that if you shoot them in the head, they don't always die. They just flail around like headless chickens.
Yeah. Some of them are even more dangerous. Decapitate them.
Yeah, or shoot away their legs and they start crawling towards you. That's fucking creepy.
Yeah.
What was it? It was for me. What was that one monster that looks like a fucking mattress in Silent Hill 2 and it crawls up on like the ceilings and shit?
Oh God, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
I can't-
The dad monster or something. I think.
That's a different monster. That one crawls along the floor. Is the one you're talking about? Is it one you fight as a boss battle in the hospital?
No, I was maybe I'm thinking of the one that Doper was mentioning. The one where you find out about what that ties into as far as one of the other characters in Silent Hill, where they were molested as a child.
Oh yeah, that one. I know what you're talking about. They're called Abstract Daddy.
Yeah, that's the one.
All right.
That one's just so like when you really think about it, it's just like Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, when you
that
when you
design,
finally, like when you play more of the game later and you finally put the pieces together in your head, you're like, oh my God, now that's even worse now. That's creepier now.
I remember that scene like from a Let's Play, and I remember not only that, but the thing that also makes it really nasty is the room that you're in has these pistons coming in and out of the wall. like these giant cylinders coming out and just coming in of holes. And it's like, once you figure, oh wait, that's what they symbolize.
Mhm.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And then you start to feel really bad for the character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sexy.
All
right.
As far as like character, I don't really know about a specific character per se. I can't really think of one off the top of my head, and I don't want to just say like another Silent Hill character because I feel like that would just be too easy to do. So I think I would have to go into like more psychological horror games and maybe find like a completely different character to reference.
The antagonist in Alan Wake American Nightmare is actually pretty good as well. I think his name is Sketch, or it's
Scratch.
the image.
It's a Scratch.
Scratch, that's one. I quite like him as well. I'm going to change my answer from Pyramid Head to him. Yeah.
Well,
is it that literally just Alan Wake?
It's from what I remember from Alan Wake, it's basically a manifestation of all the bad character traits that Alan has.
Yeah.
Just like manifested in like this kind of demonic entity, this like serial killer.
Yeah. By the way, I love how it's called American Nightmare. Just want to point that out. What's American about it? I don't know. He has guns.
It has a Finnish main character.
Yeah.
It has
that makes sense.
What the fuck? So somebody calls Atelius a Finnish switch.
Yes. Please. We need Mr.
Man.
Finland here.
Yeah.
I guess since we're not going in order, I've actually got a pretty good one that's not from a Silent Hill game, believe it or not. It's from another horror game. I guess you'd call it a horror atmospheric psychological game. It's this old point and click DOS game that I had from my childhood called Dreamweb. It's the main character, Ryan. He's a character that's plagued with all kinds of nightmares, and he has a depressing life. Like, you read about this in this cool little journal that the game comes with, a physical journal that also works as the copy protection, because you need to look up a password to access, a puzzle in the game by reading it. You learn that the guy's, he's very depressed about his life. Like, he lives with his girlfriend, and, she's very successful, whereas he works in a slummy, depressing bar. And his best friend is a drug addict who comes by to, try to sell him drugs every single day, but he's been clean of that stuff for a while. And during this whole depressing life he has nightmares about people in this alternate dimension who tell him that he's got to go kill these people who have a lot of power in the world. Like, one of them's a singer, one of them's a military leader, and these people have to be killed, or else the dream web's gonna shatter and the world's gonna end. But as you play the game, you come to think maybe these are just dreams that my character's having, and he's just going on a big killing spree this whole time, shit like that. And it makes you really question. It made me really question, that the character Ryan and his mind, is he really having these are these actually, visions of another world he's having, or is he just, snapping and losing his mind and just going on a killing spree? That's why I think Ryan, the protagonist of that game, is one of my favorite characters. He has a lot of depth to him, makes you question just what the hell is going on, makes you really question him and the world around him. If that makes any kind of sense.
That actually sounds very good, by the way. What was that game called? I might check it out.
Dreamweb. It's legit. Yeah, it's a DOS game. It's legitly freeware now, so you can legally download it for free now. You can run it, like I run it in a DOS emulator. It's a really good atmospheric, atmospheric game. I recommend you guys check it out if you know how to get DOS games running really well
Or
on
just get DOSBox.
Yep, DOSBox. Yep. There's a couple sites where they even have the game all loaded on a preloaded DOSBox. So all you got to do is just double click it and play it. And I might actually do a let's play of that game sometime. Now that I've mentioned it, it's one of those kind of games.
Yeah, sounds nice.
The only like if we go on the deep end here, like the only horror game I played that was that old was that had horror elements was Waxworks.
I don't think I played
That game
one.
is
Is that a
creepy
DOS
as
game?
Shit. Yes,
Is that
it's
a DOS game?
It's gory as shit. Like the way you die and everything. No, I don't recommend anyone plays that. It's literally scarily disgusting.
Now you're making it sound more interesting, actually.
It's
I
on
do
GOG.
like over-the-top violence.
Don't play it, even though I told you where to buy it. Don't play it.
Should we look up YouTube? Should we look up like a let's play of it on YouTube at least?
Yeah, sure.
This is a great recommendation for Martin. Don't play it. Don't buy it.
All right,
Don't
then.
buy it from here.
All right.
All right, I guess I'll go with mine then. I'd probably say Leland Van Horn from Condemned. If anyone's played that game.
Oh, yes.
I played a little bit of that
Yeah.
game.
I love that game.
He's like the main serial killer who he goes around and kills serial killers. In the way
Yes.
that the serial killers kill other people. He does the same shit to them.
Oh, there's a lot of creepy stuff in that game, too.
Yeah, there's just shit done. Yeah, but I like that dude. He's fucked up in the head.
He's fucked up, but he's doing something right.
And he's doing something wrong, right in the wrong way.
It's actually a revelation to why he acts like that later on, and it's cool as shit. First game is really good. Second was great up until the very ending. The ending sucked in the second
Yeah,
one.
that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first one is amazing.
Oh yeah. Play Condemned. Play both of them. 2 is still good up until the ending. Just disregard the ending and.
Yeah, it's still a worthwhile game to play.
Yeah, it's still worth playing. Just know the ending is trash. That's it. Right. Was that it?
Yup.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to add.
All right. Number 6. How do you feel about aspects of mental illness and traits of mind deterioration placed into the plot of psychological horror games as more of a central focus of discovery for these character arcs? Do you think these implementations are already done well, shoehorned in now with games like Hellblade, or should something more revolutionary come in with the writing to reinvent the wheel of the subgenre?
Well,
That's a good question, actually. Holy crap.
Why did
Thing
you
is
name
that-
drop
I could answer
Hellblade?
it.
That's what I'm curious about.
I think that the psychological illness that is in most of these games is actually amnesia, so to speak. That your character doesn't know who he is or what he has done,
Yeah.
because that's technically it's a very cheap setup, but it's very effective because you can do these crazy reveals that you otherwise couldn't do, I guess. But yeah, it's very overdone.
Yeah, but on the other hand, especially things like amnesia is so overdone that it actually becomes like a negative point at this point when you have I have an amnesiac person waking up in a hospital. Gee,
Yeah, it's overdone.
It's also something I don't know if it's completely from this question, but the thing that kind of irks me is that also is the idea of insane asylums or abandoned hospitals, or having mental patients as just insane enemies who will run at you and try to stab you with syringes or stuff, or babble at a wall or something. That's also kind of what like that, like 100 games have done that, and almost in all of them like have done that in a pretty like basic dime a dozen kind of way.
Do you mind
I
if
think it's clear, kind of at the point where you can say like it's honestly getting kind of like insulting to kind of portray the mentally ill as these like lunatics. They'll try to stab you the second they see you or something.
Do you mind if I interject here? Because we were talking about this before the actual podcast started and stuff, but The Evil Within, and we were talking about whether or not that game technically counts as psychological horror. But I own the concept art, the art book that Dark Horse released for the first game, and I was following that game very early on once it was known as when it was known as Project Y, and before it even was officially announced. But one of the things that game was originally supposed to do, as far as the asylum was concerned, it was not supposed to be like the patients are like fucking insane or anything like that, and that they'll try to kill you or anything like that. Obviously they were there and they were patients, but it was more supposed to be about uncertainty of how and what could happen, how things could change and what could happen within the world. And example of that would be like 1 minute you're in a room, there's like a movie room or whatever with a projector screen. It's a projector screen, and everything just seems normal. Patients are watching movies. The nurse is putting whatever is on the projector screen so that they could watch. And then the next minute it shifts to everyone in that room was dead and there's a monster coming straight out of the projector screen. So stuff like that I think would have been far more interesting than just, it's you're just in an asylum and it's just a bunch of fucking crazy people. It's abandoned, but
Yeah,
they're still all alive. They haven't eaten in fucking 6 years in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere. And then also just on top of that, one of the things that game was supposed to do too was have like the sense of traveling to various different locations, and some of those locations were very like olden 1800 like stone like towns with like ships like not like docked at the ports and stuff like that you could go through, and things, even though they were connected, they would lead you to like vastly different locations as you either went up and down and traversed through various different locations. Hell, even like abandoned castles and stuff like that, from mansions to castles to mining facilities and all sorts of stuff that never unfortunately made it into the game. And the game was actually supposed to, it seemed originally at least, that it was supposed to take some inspiration from, I don't know if you guys ever seen that one movie with Leo DiCaprio, Shutter Island.
Yeah.
It was supposed to, it really was, it did have a sense of that too, because originally the asylum was going to be on an island, and you were going to go to an island in to see this insane asylum and see what was going on there. So stuff like that I think would have been a lot more interesting than just saying, oh, the asylum or the hospital is abandoned and there's a bunch of fucking crazy fucks in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you call it that, because like takes a premise of Shutter Island, and I'm not going to like spoil what happens in Shutter Island because you really should watch Shutter Island. It is awesome.
Yeah.
But like the twist that has a really interesting like take on the idea of like mental illness as something that is as a norm of is not just a trope. It's not just it's an insane babbling like is a person who wants to kill everyone or something, because because in the real life mental illness or insanity does not exist. No one's insane, but what they have is a plethora of like mental illnesses or dysfunctions that they like, and it's it's honestly kind of like disappointing that a lot of games will just stick to like the old like insane asylum, like a crazy person trying to kill you, trying to stab at you, like trope. When I think that a lot of I think the games could use like mental illness in ways that they have not yet before. Like they have like a personality disorder or schizophrenia or even like anxiety attacks or something, like something that would be be interesting or more, I won't say disinteresting. I would like, but maybe open the door to like different kinds of like gameplay, or different ways of like telling a story than just the standard insane asylum.
Yeah, I think you cannot just if you just go around and say, yeah, they're just crazy. That's lazy and lame. Really, if you give them a bit more backstory, then you can make the game whole a lot more interesting, as you said, with different kind of illnesses. Maybe they manifest in different kind of gameplay as well. I don't know. Maybe there's some guy that has some weird mental illness so that he will try to attack everyone that moves. So if that guy comes around, you have to freeze in position, and you have to wait until he's gone, stuff like that, that you have a bit of a backstory that why does he do this, and then it becomes maybe even more fucked up, as with the thing that we talked before, the Silent Hill monster, what was he called? The daddy monster.
Abstract Daddy.
Yeah. With that, it was the same thing. As soon as you knew what that thing was and why, it became even scarier. And it wouldn't be half as scary if you just say, yeah, that is a random crazy monster. Then it's still scary, but not as much as it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, I proved that to Relogs on his stream last week. Because he was being chased by these random Thai mythology monsters. And as was going along, I was actually explaining what those monsters were, and it made him even more scared.
Yeah, it's sometimes also with like mythological monster, if you read the folklore that inspired these monsters, it gets a lot more scarier all of a sudden. So yeah, sometimes
definitely.
you might need to force feed the player a bit of story, actually, a bit more of backstory, and it could be a lot scarier.
Although a minor counter-argument is that sometimes it actually becomes less scary in very, very few occasions, so it can go both ways.
True,
yes. 50-51 as well.
Absolutely. I think there's kind of two aspects that really relate to the folklore part. With Dante's Inferno, which isn't really psychological horror, but like if you know the premise of that, he goes to hell and he all the 7 deadly sins, he fights against them, gets through the big boss, and it's the levels in that game are based around the deadly sins. And I think you can probably get a game based around like mental issues, be it schizophrenia, dementia, amnesia, there's a plethora of them, and you can really sit down and make a really strong psychological horror game based around mental illness, with you probably being the main character with mental illness and meeting other characters in the game and then going through their life and how they got to the point and when they realized they were mentally ill and things like that. That can be one of those really slowly paced games where you get the story that's drawn out and it's just strong, and the dialogue is what really sells the game rather than the action pieces of that game.
That could be really good, yeah. Also, Dante's Inferno is a good game, but shit marketing campaign.
Have we ever gotten a game where, as the game goes along, the character at first is entirely normal, but because of the experiences, he gradually becomes more and more mentally unstable? I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing a game where a character is entirely normal but he kind of changes halfway through. I've not seen that being done though.
I think there might be, but I can't recall.
I think in one of the Dead Space games, stuff like that happens where you start to see like things that aren't there, but I cannot really remember which one it was.
I have one.
It's the second one.
Oh yeah,
Could
keep going.
No, just go. That's fine.
I have a game that when we got to mental illness, I started thinking about if I played a game where like you have proper mental illness, and me remembering this game got me really fucking jarred right now because like I've just become a parent, and you'll understand why I'm saying this in 1 second. But like this, it starts off like a normal horror game, like where you like wake up in a room and you're being chased by like a little girl that's like horrific, like she stalks you and all that kind of shit. And it goes along like at the end of the game, I don't remember what the name of this game is, but at the end of the game, like you snap and you push that ghost girl down the stairs, and it turns out you're just a mother suffering from PTSD.
Oh,
So you
damn.
push down your own kid down the stairs.
That's very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the things that I would
What was
love
this
to see
called?
more.
I don't remember what name of the game was. I just remember the events that happened because that actually gutted me.
That's,
that's it.
really good, actually. I'm not gonna lie. I know. Wasn't it that one game where you play as a baby?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Among the
Sleep or whatever.
Yeah, Among
yeah,
Sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like at the end. The monster was just the mother because she had some issues or whatever.
I remember it was like
Yeah.
she had alcoholism and she was losing custody of her child because of it at the end.
Yep, and you play as that child.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a game where you're the isn't it like the Rising of Isaac or something like that?
Binding
of
Isaac.
That's the
Mhm.
one, the Binding of Isaac. That game, I'm not sure if it's very psychological, but there's a lot of behind the scenes psychological parts from what I've seen of it, like that you are this baby and you've got the umbilical cord and everything, and then when you get to the end of the game, crazy shit goes down. I think that's quite a good implementation of how psychological and the mental illness part behind that, because you're in this baby's mind and you're going through, or rather, no, you're the baby and you're going through what they've gone through themselves in aspect as well. That's quite a good way they've done it.
Did anyone else want to go, or we can move on
I
to
guess
the
I
next
could go unless no one else wants to go right now.
one? Okay.
I would say like I forgot who was saying this earlier about levels based on characters' psychological problems. Like I think it could be good if done right. Like let's say there's like a game where the levels are based on different psychological issues a person has, and it's like say like the depression level. It could be like watery and murky, where you're in there, it feels kind of hopeless. All you can really do is just you're in a boat, you're rowing along in a big gigantic sea of nothing but a blue void and water and maybe rain. Whereas like one based on like schizophrenia would have like houses with like nonsensical structure, nonsensical noise, stuff like that. I think if done right, that could be done pretty good and effective. Like I think they tried that with Sanitarium, where there's one part of the game where you play as the character's sister and she's in a carnival. If that makes any kind of sense, like trying to have the memories of her.
No, definitely. That sounds. I completely agree. I was the one that was saying about the mental illness levels as well. So if they can do that sounds like something I'd actually get into. I think if on a protagonist side rather than even just the story, I think, and it's sad to say that schizophrenia can actually work really well for, like, say, as a hero, you can have different powers based on your schizophrenia. Like I think they did that with Jericho. It wasn't so much as schizophrenia, it was just different characters, and you can beat like 6 different characters playing throughout the game. So if you can do that type of story, but still with the characters rather, but still have a good enough story that provides an explanation as to why that's there, rather than just, oh, you've got schizophrenia, so it gives you different powers. That can be something that's really good as well.
Oh, I get you. That makes sense. Kind of like didn't they try that in what's that really popular Psychonauts? Didn't they try that with Psychonauts at one point in the game, or was that just with the environments?
I think it was just the environment.
I played Psychonauts, to be fair.
I think it was just environment. I'm not quite sure. I'm not that familiar. I've played Psychonauts like years ago, so I barely remember anything about it. But yeah, having like levels based around different kind of illnesses, like based like the previous guy said, that make like a depression level where you have the exit, and the exit is just like a shining beacon of light, but you have to collect 50 points to get to that exit. But try as you might, you will never get more points. And you can see the exit. You can see that that's the correct way to go, but you'll never get through it because you just cannot get 50 points. So you'll have to go through the worst a worse exit.
Or you could do like a clever fourth wall thingy that you have to actually quit the game to get further ahead. That would be really sneaky.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
That's like the one in Metal Gear Solid where you died, and in the death screen you had to actually revive yourself, and I didn't get that the first 3 times around.
I did not get that.
That was really good.
So yeah.
All right.
Shoot.
I think next question.
We move on.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Martin.
Go for it.
All right, let's move on. Yes. All right. So, what was your favorite story within this genre of psychological video games? Please describe why. It's the easiest question, man. Come on.
Who's gonna? I can start. I'm happy to do that because mine's absolutely ready.
All right, go ahead.
Alan Wake, straight up, for me, it is because like I said, I'm a writer myself, so having writer's block is a serious thing when you've got that issue, and the whole story of going to this whole different environment to completely freshen up your mind and get those juices flowing again, and trying to write something, and then going through everything for Alan Wake as the character. And I love the fact that his name just means awake as well, and he's just going through this whole story with the shadows and why the shadows are there. And when you pick up the manuscripts, going through the story that he's writing in Bright Falls, and overall how they wrote that is absolutely amazing. And especially when you get towards the end, when you're figuring everything out, the set pieces that they've got in that help the story much more than I think many set pieces really help a psychological horror story, and even action games for that matter, is absolutely amazing. Going through, picking up bits and pieces, and even within the TV show that they've got as well. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a TV show on, when you see a TV, you can watch the episodes going through, and that pushes the story along. Everything in that game mattered story-wise as long as you picked it up. And getting to the end, absolutely amazing.
I don't know if it's technically a horror story or a horror game. It is horror inspired, which is another Dawson pre-Windows point-and-click adventure called Gabriel Knight's Sins of the Fathers. Sins of the Father. It's basically a detective story where you have to figure out like voodoo murders in New Orleans, and you find out that your character is an ancient like demon hunter, and you find all kinds of other things about like weird voodoo cults and stuff. But the thing that makes it more interesting than just like a horror inspired like the detective game is the fact that it actually did a lot of research into like voodoo and the different kinds of like voodoo rituals and the religion, different like ideas of religion between the different practitioners of voodoo. And there's like you can honestly learn a lot from just playing the game and just hearing the characters talk about like the Loa or the difference between like black voodoo and white voodoo.
Yeah.
Like it's really interesting to play a game while actually learning something about a particular subject. So yeah.
That sounds interesting. I might have to write these on a list, man. Holy shit. No, I'm going to go with Oxenfree.
I just downloaded that.
But this is gonna be the one game where I say I'm not gonna say anything about it, cause that game, I will not spoil that game. No, never. All right, that's it.
Nice.
For myself personally, I am gonna have to go with typical answer, Silent Hill 2. But I only say that because I personally deal with a lot of depression in my life. So, seeing like the character James and what he goes through, and as you learn about what's been going on with him and how he is as a character, and then on top of that, you know about like Guy Seehee, and he was actually literally depressed when he was doing the voice work for that game at the time of recording and stuff. It kind of like resonates with me because of how I can relate to that, I guess.
I guess my favorite story within psychological horror, going back to Silent Hill, but a different Silent Hill game. Walter Sullivan from Silent Hill 4. He's the main villain in that game, sort of, and because of the things he had to go through, you really can't blame him, because here's kind of his story. He was born in room 302 of South Ashfield Heights, which is an apartment complex in a town that's near Silent Hill. His biological parents gave birth to him in that room and just packed up and left him there all by himself. So he was found by the superintendent. He went to the hospital. He was saved. And he went to an orphanage where he was raised by the Silent Hill cult. And he was led to believe through brainwashing and, abuse through the prison guards and the religious people who worked at that sect. He was led to believe that room 302, the very room he was born in, was his mother. And he had to go through like this ritual where he had to kill 21 different people to awaken his mother. And throughout that whole time throughout his childhood, when he was in that prison, he was forced to read the religious scripture and abide by it. And if he didn't, he would get beaten by the prison guards and thrown in jail, and not in jail, in the prison cells. And this is when he was like an 8-year-old boy. And now in the game as an adult with some occultic powers due to a ritual that he did, he's now continuing his murder spree. And because of all that, it's hard. The only thing you could do to stop him is to physically force him to stop by killing him.
Jeez.
Like all his life, he was treated like some big unwanted mistake that he just got thrown into this planet by a cruel mother, by a cruel mother who brought him into this world, to where he's constantly being beaten, being used, possibly other stuff I don't even want to get into as a child. He's kind of a sympathetic bad guy in a way, but you still gotta stop him from Awakening the God.
I really need to play that game on these days.
Good game.
You should have blamed Ren.
We all-
Hashtag blame Ren.
We all should, yes.
I'm an asshole.
All right. I think for me, the coolest story. It's a bit of a weird game. It's called SCP Containment Breach.
Oh
my God, I could not play that game because of all the jump scares and that freaking teddy bear that would show up occasionally that would just kill you.
The thing is, for me, I love that game, not necessarily because of the game, but because of where it came from. It came, of course, from the SCP Wiki website, which is like a huge creepy pasta kind of website. Oh yeah.
Oh God,
nice photo.
screw you, Render. Screw you, Psycho. I see that.
Nice. So yeah, basically, it's made from stories that user have written, these kind of scientific creepy pasta story from a fictional organization that keeps a hold of anomalous creatures and artifacts and tries to shelter them from the world so that the world is not basically doomed. And you start in the game as a D-class personnel, which is basically a death row inmate that is sent to the facility for testing. So basically, you're a guinea pig. And during testing, of course, something goes horribly wrong, and you're left there with that thing that we see in the chat, that monster, which basically it's like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. It can only move when it's not observed. And that sounds easy enough, but the thing is, you have like a blinking mechanic in the game that every like few seconds you have to blink, and then it moves again. So you're never safe. And then you have to escape, and you meet other kind of anomalies that if you read on the SCP website kind of regularly, there's like 1,000 of these things. And they just put like 3 or 4 in this game. And that's kind of cool because there's so much cool stuff on that website. They could make like hundreds of games from the content that is.
They can make games and movies and shit too.
Oh yeah.
There's a spin-off game for that game.
Yeah, the stairwell.
Yeah. SCP like stairwell or something. And it's just a game where you walk downstairs in it's pitch black almost, and as you walk downstairs, just horrifying shit happens along the way.
Yes,
there's a part in the stairwell game where you go through like it's like a brick stairway at one point, I think, because it changes as you go down, from what I remember. And there's like a hole in one of the walls, and you look through it, and there's like some shit. Yeah, there's like some shit that you see.
Yeah, that shit.
And I think if you take too long, eventually there's something that will kill you if you take too long in the staircase.
Yeah, because there's one of them. There's something chasing you. Because if you stop long enough, you'll start hearing the footsteps louder and louder.
Yeah, it's some weird thingy that inhabits this staircase. But that's the great thing about the SCP website. Even on the website in the story, it's never really explained what it is. It's very vague, so it's left to your imagination what kind of fucked up thing that is. And that really, really makes it even more scarier if you make it up yourself.
There's a part in that game where it says, "Look at me," or "Look behind you." And if you do that, it kills you.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Keep going, Shadow.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that's just so great because even if I just read the articles on that website, I sometimes get the chills. And if they make these things into games, it's even better. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah. SCP Wiki's really fun to. There's an app for the phones where you can just read that shit whenever you want. It makes for good reading.
Fun. It's
horrifying.
That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah, there are some fun things in. It's not just creepy. Sometimes it's very clever stuff they put in there.
You look up SCP-420J.
Oh yeah, there's choke and anomalies they put in there as well. They're really fucking funny.
Like, there's one that I wish I had in real life. It was the endless pizza box.
Oh yeah, that's so great.
Open it up, get free pizza whenever you want.
Sometimes there's just stupid shit like that, but yeah, there's a lot of scary stuff too.
Yeah.
It's just a great website to read.
Wait,
if you're
hold up.
bored.
Hold up. If it's an endless pizza box, how is that a bad thing for the world? Like
It's
look,
not.
you can solve world hunger with a fucking endless pizza box. This is a great idea.
But then the entire world would get overweight, and then like the problem would be people dying of hunger, would be people dying from heart attacks.
Who said you had to eat it though?
Yeah, that's the thing. They also contain non-dangerous stuff, so sometimes it's just like some weird kind of mythological things. There's like a skeleton key described, like a key that can open every door. There's just some very mundane stuff as well on there, but there's a lot of scary shit.
It's worth a read.
Oh yeah.
The greatest horror, infinite pineapple pizza.
It might be the most horrifying free game you can find out there. I'm gonna be honest.
Yes.
That game.
Yes.
Yeah. It might be. It's really intimidating.
Yep, I tried playing it, but I kept getting killed by the damn teddy bear.
Yeah.
You also meet this dude.
Yes.
He looks friendly.
Oh god, him.
Yeah, I'm gonna delete that.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah,
in case someone random looks in the chat, I don't want.
All right.
I wanted to get spooked. Yeah, that had no part of this.
There are no spooks in this chat.
No spookies.
All right, next question or topic, whatever.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, number 8. Hypothetically, what do you think psychological horror themes, or why do you think psychological horror themes are relatable over more visceral forms of body horror when it comes to what the human psyche perceives?
What question are we on?
8.
Oh.
Well, for that one, I'd probably say like why they're more relatable, but they're supposed to be. Like most of the psychological horror things are psychological. I don't know. It's supposed to be relatable. That's that's the scary part about it.
I guess every one of us at one point in time once sat alone in his room at night when it was dark and he was alone, and then suddenly you hear something and you get fucking scared. You think, oh god, now I'm gonna die. That's just things that happens to all of us, and that's why it's so scary.
I think
that's why a lot of children are scared of the dark, really.
Yeah.
I think with the question, I don't think it's so much more of a body horror, like when you've got evil within. What makes that game scary is more what happens to characters in that game, like they get cut or something like that. I think that for me isn't what's relatable. That is what's relatable because we all don't like physical pain or seeing it in that grand scheme of things when it's so gory. I think what really makes it relatable is when you realize what's behind the scenes, the actual psychology behind it, rather than it's the commercial effect of seeing someone get cut because of the psychological effect. I think what really makes something relatable is when you relate to the psychology, but on the surface, it's seeing this body horror in Silent Hill, in Evil Within, in Binding of Isaac, all these games that show something graphically painful. That's what's commercially relatable, that everyone's like, yeah, I don't like the look of that. But when something strongly relatable is when that person suffers or lives with, rather, that psychological issue.
Yeah, it's the setup around it. I mean, it's not really scary if you see Jason Voorhees kill victim number 259 with his machete. That's just, yeah, okay, whatever.
Another day, same shit, different day, basically, at that point.
Yeah. You need to have a good setup around it, and then stuff like that, this visceral stuff, can be really effective as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really think I could add to that, because I think Shadow Pyro really hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah, I have nothing. I can't really add to that. He nailed it. He nailed it. Nailed it.
So I guess we're good for number 9 then at that point.
Oh yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah.
definitely. Let's go for number 9.
More,
Silent Hill is
more good at
usually
stop being
considered
so stuck in the game.
what?
You gotta stop being so stuck in your game.
I'm actually not playing anything. I'm looking at GOG.
Oh.
Yeah. So, Silent Hill is usually considered the most popular for the subgenre. Can you set your feelings on why Silent Hill was so important to psychological horror in gaming? I mean, to me, it's always been because it's been memorable. You know, like everything in that game feels memorable to an extent, whether it be some of the monsters or the story or characters or whatnot. It feels memorable and engaging. Through the entire thing, like a lot of the games. So, I mean, I guess that's why, because it's just that fucking good.
I think when it comes to like that particular franchise, what makes it work so well and why it's been considered so popular is because it takes a lot of things that are really just like messed up and really dives into like how that could be viewed in a very messed up and psychological way. Like I think I mentioned this earlier too, where like everything in Silent Hill, at least with the Team Silent games, if it's there, it has some sort of purpose. The name has some sort of purpose. The design has some sort of purpose. Everything can be explained with in some way. On top of that, I think it's just a matter of it's a mix of like Japanese style horror with like a Western flair to it, basically. Because like obviously the games are set in America, but they take a lot of inspiration from what's popular within Japanese horror and just kind of blend the two together.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely on board with that. I think for me, what's so significant about Silent Hill is literally nostalgia factor. Like, I didn't grow up playing Silent Hill. My only real time playing it was during the demo of it. But nostalgia and the fact it's kind of like the godfather of the games that we've got now, such as your Evil Withins and so on. And people often say, oh, well, this is like Silent Hill because of this, this, and this. And whilst they're right, but everything is going to probably draw inspiration in some way or another from Silent Hill because it came out on the PlayStation and it's been there relatively strong all the way through up until now. And even with Silent Hill PT as well, which I have no idea what's going on with right now, even that showed how significant Silent Hill has been. The fact that people wanted that game, it's been dropped, it's been picked up again, and all these types of things. But because of the history of Silent Hill, that's what makes it so strong, rather than it just being, this is an amazing game. It's that the history for it is what keeps everyone saying it's so amazing, because it's the godfather of that genre.
Yeah. So was that it? Yeah,
I guess I could go.
Right,
Since
go
I play a lot of Silent Hill.
Yeah, take your time, man.
Say your feelings on why Silent Hill was so important. I would say mainly because of how it just nailed the atmosphere for its time. Like with the PlayStation 1 Silent Hill 1 game, they took a PlayStation game's weakness of the limited draw distance and turned it into an advantage by, in outdoor areas, get really foggy to where the fog obscures, what the draw distance can't process, but making you think, what could be out there, what could be hiding. Like take, like how in Silent Hill, the Team Silent ones, when you're in a level, like say the hospital or the apartment, there's always those doors that that you cannot open. Like the lock is jammed, you can't open it, and it's always a room. And it's always the rooms that you need to get into to progress in the game are the only ones that open. That was one of the
definitely.
that was one of the scarier aspects, because you see all the freaky shit in the rooms that you can go into, like the monsters, the distraught environments, the sounds. And that was one of the things that were that's just a small aspect. Like I always wondered, like, what's behind all these damn doors? Like if all these unspeakable horrors are being shown to me in these doors that I'm able to open, it's hard to imagine. I don't even want to imagine what could be behind these shut ones. It's like with the Silent Hill games, it's always like it's a world filled with doubt, and there are all sorts of things to further shroud that doubt to make you, second guess yourself, or make you question whether or not do I want to stick my hand in this hole that has a key in it, or do I want to go into this room where this happened and whatnot. Always those games that brings the feeling of doubt from the player character to the person holding the controller in his hand in front of the TV. That's the way I see it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
If any of that made any sense to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, duh.
Because I always find Silent Hill stuff way hard to explain sometimes, even when I'm trying to explain it to someone who's like really, really smart. Like it's one of those games the horror's hard to properly pin down, and that's one of the beautiful things about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, sounds fine.
Yeah, that sounds fine actually.
I don't think we can add to that anymore.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. I mean, what can you add? All right, let's move on to number 10. If you could revive any dormant title for a new game that revolved around psychological elements / psychological horror, then what would it be and why should it be revived? To make the question more interesting and not a follow-up to the last question, the Silent Hill IP cannot be chosen.
Alan Wake. Remedy really another Alan Wake.
Yeah.
I would have to go for Fatal Frame.
Fatal
Ooh.
Frame still gets made though. That's the thing.
The last one I checked was like 2-3 years ago.
Well, yeah.
Or is it
whatever.
just for the Japanese market?
No, it came out here for the Wii U or whatever.
Oh, Wii U, who plays that?
Yeah.
Now you know what I mean. Like a proper... I don't care if it's PC or PS4, like just for, I don't know, a proper game. I know that with the Wii U you have this kind of gimmicky kind of thing, I guess, that you can use the Wii U controller as a camera. But yeah, I don't know. You could also do this in a alternative reality sense, that you can make a phone game out of it.
They tried making a Fatal Frame spin-off for the 3DS where you'd use the camera.
I can just imagine people going outside, just like Pokemon Go, but at night.
It was garbage.
No, you don't need that. That's great. No, nah.
You just have random things popping up on the screen. It was garbage.
Yeah, that's what I imagined, actually. No, but seriously, like a really good Fatal Frame. I would play the shit out of that.
Like Google glasses or something. That would have been funny as shit.
For VR. Oh, yes.
A VR game in general with Fatal Frame would have been awesome.
Yeah, I could really imagine that would probably make me shit my pants. But okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a bit tired right now, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we've been going for over 2 hours now.
Yeah, 2 hours and 4 minutes. It's my recording.
Whoops.
Damn.
Yep.
Blame Ren.
Yeah, fuck you, Ren. And your big ass fucking topics. We're a third through this dog.
Mm.
Oh, 2/3. Sorry, we're 2/3 through this dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is
Don't
gonna
worry
be a
about it.
long ass podcast.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Don't
Alright,
worry
just
about it.
speed through the next one then.
Nah, nobody has any other answer though. What game would you revive?
Mine would be Alan Wake as well. That's my only input.
I would say a dormant psychological horror franchise to bring back. I would say maybe making maybe it would be nice to see a new sanitarium where like you play as like another guy in the story, but you're also going through your own things. Only it would be kind of cool to like see the dream worlds of other characters in that kind of game.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting premise.
I don't know if the game I'm thinking of counts because it's more of a survival horror game than anything. The Suffering.
Oh.
But
Yeah, I
don't know.
think that would because like depending on your choices and actions, you could determine if your character was the guy who like committed the murders or if he like tried to stop them. Or
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of a psychological play, at least on the player.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Either way, if it's not, shout outs to that game because that game is underrated.
Right. It's on PS2 and I think Xbox.
It's on GOG as well, so play it.
Oh,
Both
nice.
Both of them.
Nice.
Just play it. But yeah, I think that was it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to number 11. What are some things that would break the immersion of a psychological horror game for me, or for you rather?
Oh boy.
I think I brought this up a lot on the podcast, but in general, spoilers. When it comes to a psychological horror game, it won't have its effect on me if I know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, we covered that earlier as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you take away that aspect of outside influence as what within the game itself.
Also,
I
if
think
yeah,
Well, I have a
there's
pretty
a clear
easy one.
line between messing with your mind and just coming up with random shit.
Mm.
Yes. Because some psychological horror games, because I play a lot of shit games on Steam, there's this sin of thinking, I want to be creative and mess with your mind type of way, but it just comes off as a 5-year-old wrote it. If you understand what I'm saying. You
can
know?
you give an example?
Alright, for example, if I'm going around and doing all of this stuff, right, and then the plot twist would be that I was the killer or whatever the fuck, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very subtle about building something up like that, for example. But, for example, I've seen some games that try to do that thing, you know? But I don't know what this game's name was called, and I'm glad I don't, because I don't want to shout out the damn thing. But it just did that plot twist, but it didn't build up to that at all. If you know what I mean. So just make it subtle, and
It just
general,
dropped you.
Yeah.
It just dropped it on you. Like, yeah, oh, you're the. Oh, okay.
By the way, you're evil. Yeah, that's kind of
yeah,
dumb.
be more subtle and not in your face. Yeah.
Mine's gonna sound really weird, but for me, what ruins every horror game is dying for some reason. As soon as I die the first time, the game is not scary anymore. Because for me, the most the most horrific point where you can be is right at the verge of dying.
Yeah.
And as soon as you go over that, then you're out of the game because, oh yeah, I died, I need to do it again. That's kind of weird because in Amnesia, like I played, I guess, like 4/5 of that game without dying. And as soon as I died the first time, the horror faded away for some reason. And I think it's really that, because if you realize that you just can die and do it again, then it becomes just a game and not a horror experience anymore, for me at least.
when
What you're
you
saying
when you could
you're almost about to die all the time, but you don't quite die.
Yes, that's perfect. If it's like that through the whole game, that's freaking perfect for me.
when the game is either messing up with something or characters glitch or they don't move quite how they should do, that's another immersion breaker. I remember very vividly. Sorry. The exact point where I was no longer scared of alien isolation. And it was about at the halfway point where the xenomorph was in a room with me, and I was hiding under a table, and I was waiting for it to check everything and either walk away or find me and kill me. And then, as it was moving around, a traffic cone that was in the room became stuck to its tail, and I was watching a xenomorph run around with a traffic cone stuck to its tail. And as funny as that was, it did not make the xenomorph any more scary. Because every time I see it, I was like, "Hey, where's your buddy? Where's Traffic Cone? Is Traffic Cone gonna do his own game? Traffic Cone isolation? Huh?
Yeah. Fuck.
I'd play it. And for me, I'd say the biggest immersion breaker in a psychological horror game, two things: on-screen button prompts and quick time events.
God.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
like as soon like that was literally like because if you have those on the screen, like even having like a life bar or something on the screen can kill your immersion in a game where you want to feel something. I mean, if you want to play a game, then play a game. But in a psychological horror game, if it does its job, if it makes you feel something, and having a prompt on the screen that says press A to open door, or A button open door when you're standing next to a door, it completely kills the immersion. You know, I'm supposed to feel something.
Yeah.
Like when Silent Hill Homecoming and what's that one on the PSP, Origins, started doing that, and they had like on-screen button prompts for QTEs and stuff. I hated that. I hated it when it just makes the immersion not good. And with good psychological horror, it has to immerse you. If it can't immerse you, it's just another action or another adventure game.
Yeah.
As
I
far
agree. I
as
think,
God.
Murder Cell Suspect had that same issue because I'm currently playing through it now, and it seems like the story's interesting so far, but everything's on the screen for you, and you don't feel like you're in the world that they set you up in. It's just you press A to do this, and it's just there the moment you're next to something, like you said, with the interaction buttons. And that's the worst thing for that kind of game. You want to just go through and pick up on something, not just be next to it and say, okay, I have to click there and then go through the game.
I was gonna say with the whole like idea of immersion too. Like, I feel like that's one of those words that gets overused a lot these days. Something is immersive, therefore it's a good game. And I think that's kind of like it's kind of an issue, especially when it comes to like horror games, because one thing that I see get thrown around a lot these days is, oh, it's in first person. You're in the character. You are the character. Therefore, it is immersive because you're experiencing the game all through first person. And I feel like that's not really truly immersive. And if anything, that just kind of, when you've seen it done so many times after a certain point, that actually, if anything, breaks the immersion because it's been done before. Because I know we were talking about like the jump scares and stuff like that earlier. So it's like I feel like to really get somebody to be invested into a game, especially like a psychological horror, I think it doesn't have to deal with like, oh, switching the camera perspective to first person or having like a ton of button prompts and stuff like that. I think what you really should be focusing on, if you're a game developer, is looking at what ways you could subtly introduce new concepts and things of that nature, story elements and things of that nature that will eventually, like lead into an interesting story point or a very well set up scare or set piece or whatever the case may be. Rather than just saying, well, we just threw the game in first person. Well, we just have a bunch of button prompts. The story plays itself, right? It just doesn't work that way. But unfortunately, I do see a lot of people say that that's immersive now. So
yeah, that's not true.
Straight up.
In Dead Space, you are in third person, but you don't have a HUD because everything like life bars and everything is in the game. And even though it's not first person, that's very immersive because you never have to like go into an inventory menu. Your inventory is on your suit, so to speak. So yeah, you can do it also in third person. You can do that very immersive as well.
yeah, and as far as like third person is concerned too, like even if they didn't have like the suit life bar like in Dead Space, like even like changing the way that the character moves, like Resident Evil did that after the second game, where like after you took a certain amount of damage, your character starts to like limp and start moving slower and slower the more damage you take. Stuff like that is more interesting because it's like if you're not keeping a close eye on certain things, and whether it be the environment or the character that you're playing as, that stuff could be very what's the word that I'm looking for? It could be very detrimental if you are not paying attention to the surrounding environment and what's going on with the character and stuff like that, as opposed to, well, there's a bunch of button prompts or the game is in first person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That the immersion has nothing to do with the UI or the camera at all. It's all about how the game captures your interest.
Definitely, yeah.
I think
Yep.
having button prompts in your game, if that won't necessarily break immersion. Speaking of at least like Dead Space 2, I can remember like there were button prompts, but they'll be like displayed like on an object or on a certain monster, which at least in some way does work as kind of like a kind of a meta thing. Or in the case, I think the last game I played that had something like that would be the third season of The Walking Dead, where button prompts would be like displayed on a zombie that you have to kill. That kind of works. I mean, yeah, I can understand like why having button prompts at these situations would be a necessity. Otherwise, you'll either have a very repetitive, like one button for everything, or, but yeah, I like having things like, oh, press this button quickly to be like, okay, or move the mouse, the right stick to view the area. Like, okay, yeah, I think I've managed to figure out how to turn the camera. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, just don't do it like Heavy Rain or God of War. That's a bit too much.
Yeah.
Like the only games I think should have that is maybe Shenmue and God Hand.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Well, yeah, Shenmue was made to be a QT experience, but although that's a whole nother subject for another day. But that I wouldn't mind talking about that one day and getting into some of the issues, but also some of the pros and cons. Well, yeah, pros and cons of that game, because it would be interesting. But Shadow Pyro, you were trying to say something?
No, I was gonna say QTEs. All it is Telltale Games handle QTEs pretty well, given what the type of games they are.
Makes sense.
All right, everyone done? Does someone
Think
have
so.
something to add?
Should we move on?
Yeah.
Good.
You mean
After
crickets?
Hang on,
fucking
this
cricket
grasshopper.
I've ever heard.
It's because the grasshopper wanted to chime in on the talk, I guess. What, grasshoppers can enjoy video games too.
Yeah. Evil Within. I don't know why.
Oh God. Ow, that hurt. That game hurts to hear about.
I'm sorry. So what is the question exactly?
A horror game that you,
Oh, and I heard somebody say the Evil Within.
Yeah, I don't know why. It just didn't click for me.
I think the part of the problem with that game, and this is coming from somebody who absolutely loved the first game, even though I acknowledge a lot of the flaws that it has. I think the biggest problem was the way that Bethesda was advertising that game, because they were really advertising that game as a return to survival horror and a return for Shinji Mikami's roots. But when you really go down to play it, it's basically Resident Evil 4 again. And that's not to say that it's bad for doing that. And there are moments where they do feel pretty tense. Like my favorite chapter in that game was chapter 7, because I really felt like the Keeper was a very tense monster to go up against. But because of the way that it was advertised, it just really didn't feel like what was being advertised was necessarily true to the fullest extent, per se.
I'm probably gonna get crucified for this, but I quit Silent Hill 3 after like 2.5 hours. I could not. I tried that game and it just, I don't know, something about it. Like, I think I was in the subway at one point. I don't think I've even made it to the whole mirror scene. I don't know. Something about the story just didn't quite link with me. Also because, like, before I even started the game, I already knew what the twist would be, how the ending would work, what was up with different characters. So that already like took a lot of like the enthusiasm of like the mystery of this horror game away. It just, I don't know. Maybe I'll try and play that game one more time, but I don't think I'll ever play farther than that.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier, actually. If you really think about it, you know.
Yeah, it's especially in the case of like these kind of like psychological horror games. Like if before you even start the game, you already have like several like of its like more rabid fans like telling you, "Oh yeah, this is the greatest game ever. Oh, it's so fucking good. Oh, it's the best game ever made. Oh, and this is the twist, and at the end this happens. And then, oh, did you see this? Oh yeah, I had this. Did you have this secret? And you get this ending." And I'm like, they are just so they are so willing to just throw everything about their game just at you. And you're like, okay, well, is there any point of me even playing this game at that?
Yeah, it really is the biggest problem with psychological horror games, is that don't spoil it. It breaks the entire thing. It really does. It's like I don't blame you for not liking that game. I mean, if I knew everything that was gonna happen the prior, it's really no point in playing this at all. You know?
I think that could be said about a lot of games, though, too.
Right.
Although
like a lot of JRPGs and stuff, I think.
I would call this the Undertale syndrome, because Undertale for me was a great game, but a friend of mine had this experience totally ruined because somebody told him about what the game was about. And the story.
That is crap.
That ruins the game for you, and why should you play it then? It sucks.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem also comes with like who's like really pushing it and who's really like, you know, overhyping games and stuff like that, because you can get people who hype up a game, say it's the greatest fucking thing ever, but then, you know, you can break it down from either just playing it, or, you know, you start, if it's like a franchise and it has previous iterations and stuff like that, it's the latest sequel, it comes off as you could look into that stuff and it's just like, well, this game isn't that great, and sales numbers don't really lie per se, and it seems like people were not happy with this iteration, or you know, I've already been told everything, so I don't really want to go through that experience. Granted, there are some games where it's like you can be given the experience and told about the experience, and it's just fine. But I think that varies, especially if you're talking about a horror game where the best aspect of a horror game should be the fear of the unknown and the fear of not knowing what you're going to be encountering. Because when you have people telling you, "Oh, well, this is going to happen, that's going to happen," it kind of does ruin that, and I can kind of see that point. Although at the same time, I guess you could make the argument, well, you're going to go through it anyway, and you know, would you rather just play the game just because of the style that it's in, and just to say that you've had that experience and stuff like that? I think it's going to vary from person to person, really. But I could definitely see that point where it's like, if you're told everything about the game, it can ruin the experience or demotivate people from going through the entire game, something like that, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that a franchise you couldn't get into? Also?
No.
Nah.
Let's move on to number 13 then, alright?
Okay.
So, what is needed to personally scare you when it comes to psychological horror or other subgenres of horror games in general? Hold your answer off if games don't scare you at all. I will say this, and it kind of ties into number 14, which is about virtual reality. You know? And it's that games don't scare me. They rarely do, unless they're really immersive. Or there's only two instances where games scares me. It's either if one, they're really immersive for at least, I might be scared initially for an hour or two, but it wears off after a while, you know, very quickly, you know? Or,
Yeah.
Number two, give me a virtual reality headset and spider-looking things jumping towards my face. No, fuck that, I'm out. You know? Because I played Farpoint. It's got these, like, spider-like little creatures, you know? Like, they don't even really look like spiders. Look more like... You guys know head crabs from Half-Life?
Oh, yeah.
They kind of look like that, only more spider-like. And they jump towards your face. The result of that is...
I can't feel you.
I'm staying away from that game. You know? I played that
can't say I blame
half
you.
an hour. Half an hour. I could not play anymore. I was just like, oh, fuck this! And I just threw that headset, I'm out. You know? So, that's my answer.
Yeah,
I'm kind of the same way with Martin, sort of with as far as like how my answer is going to be, where it kind of ties into number 14 as well. But actually, I'm kind of the opposite. For me, I think the problem is that I would actually rather, if a developer is going to make a horror game, they should actually avoid doing first person because it's been done so much. And granted, I know the argument can be made, well, third person and whether it be over the shoulder or like a fixed camera angle style has been overdone as well. But I don't think as much to the extent as first person as of late in recent years. I would say do something where if you're gonna do it, make it very, very different, like play mind games with me, I guess, where it's like I'm really thinking about what's going on and what's behind the next corner or what's behind the next door or stuff like that. And just to answer number 14, VR. That is a very interesting question because a lot of people are very interested in that subject, interested in what that sort of tech can bring because we've brought in the tech to actually. I wouldn't necessarily say perfect it, but it is at a point where it's far more of an interesting topic where people are willing enough to try it out and see what that will do for the future of gaming. And of course, a lot of people like to say, well, VR, and they go straight to horror games. And while that's great and all, and I understand that some people would like to maybe play older games with that different sort of perspective and whatnot as an option, or if the game is already in first person with VR, I understand that there's a want for that, but personally, it kind of goes back to the first person stuff. It's because of how overdone it is. I just don't have any personal interest in it. Granted, if it's like a game where it's like playing it normally without the VR stuff, you can play it in third person in whatever perspective you want to play it in, or whatever perspective it was made in. But then if you have the VR headset and you want to try it in VR and play the game in a completely different viewpoint, then I'm not against the option of that. Just as long as it's not like, hey, it's a VR game, it's first person only because of the fact that we're just bringing in VR support. We're not actually making a game, a psychological horror game, or just any kind of horror game, just for the sake of making a game that's scary or just has the theme of horror in it, as opposed to, well, there's VR, so we just want to develop something for VR and say that we brought something to the table. It just, to me, that just doesn't really seem to work.
No. Yeah.
Well, what I would say for number 13, what I really like in these kind of horror games is when it's a story about something like an urban legend or like a folklore tale, especially from things that I don't yet know about. That's what really draws me in most of the time, especially if it's these urban legends that you could in some way kind of think that they might have some truth to it, so that even if you stop playing the game, you still think about this and might even encounter situations where you would think about it. And that's, I think, the most effective thing for me, especially with a lot of these Eastern Japanese urban legends, because they're so obscure and not really known here.
Yeah, you ask Relogs, he almost crapped his pants.
Shut up.
There's actually, before you continue, there's actually one urban legend that I know of where, at least as far as a Japanese horror urban legend is concerned, where you're crossing a bridge, and there might be a lady wearing like a mask, and she'll ask you if you think she's pretty, and then she'll take off the mask, and she's got like this fucked up smile.
Yes.
And if you say yes or no, you're gonna die. So the best answer to give is that you've got to go and you can't answer her question.
Yeah, you have to startle her with that, and then you can escape. I have a movie about that. I love it.
Can we stop talking about that?
We should all send Relog some pictures of that.
That's entirely off topic, by the way. So.
All right.
I think that kind of can tie in because I think that could actually work because if you have a game that pulls up like different like legends and stuff like that and like ties it in and does something different with that would be pretty interesting.
That would be fucking scary.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, definitely. Like you've got Slender Man, like probably the most popular one where it's based on folklore. But I think for me, when it comes to what would really scare me in horror games, little girl ghost, hate that, and any sort of like slight paranormal activity. So pretty much like anything that's similar to the first Fear game, I'm good to go. And even though I completely agree with Dom and everyone else pretty much that first person's been overdone, third person just doesn't seem to scare me because I like being able to turn my head. I think if I'm in a situation, I can turn my head and still keep running. Generally, if you're in a first-person game, you turn your head and you have to walk backwards if you need to do that. And I think that's kind of what makes first-person psychological horror games or just survival horror games that tad bit more effective for me rather than third-person, because I can stand in one place, spin the camera around, and I'm good to go. But I think that's where it comes back to, I can't remember who said it earlier, but fixed camera angles are really good as well because you can only see certain parts of the screen. So fixed camera angles and first person, little girl ghost, slight paranormal activity, I'm scared.
Mm.
Hmm.
I think going off of that, by the way, I think like really the more ideal thing to do would be like give players the choice of how they want to experience the game. Like if they want to experience it in first person, you know, let them experience it that way, or if they want to experience it in third person, let them experience it that way. It should be all about giving players you know, different choices, whether it be through game options or actual gameplay.
Yeah, I mean,
the
Skyrim
software did that.
Skyrim and Fallout do it as well. So why shouldn't other games? Yeah.
Yeah, and I know this isn't a psychological horror game, but Daymare 1998 is actually doing that, where you can either play it in Resident Evil 4 action shooter style or classic fixed camera angle mode.
Nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of FPSs do that, where you can shoot, well, not necessarily FPSs, but third person versus first person. Quite a few games that aren't horror definitely do that.
Yeah. Well, I guess they do not don't do that in horror that much because a lot of like jump scares are very much reliant on you looking at something at a certain time, and so you might miss it if you don't. So yeah, I can see why they wouldn't, but it would be nice if they did.
I think that can work sometimes because that jump scare could lead you into something later on, but because you missed that jump scare, you're like, what the fuck is this shit when you get to a certain point? So it could work, it might not work.
Had that done to me in VR a few times, indeed.
All right. Is it my turn to answer the question?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, what's needed to personally scare me in a horror game?
I think
horror,
I made a
I guess.
partial list.
Okay, if I start naming things, that will take a long fucking time. But I'll just say this: I don't handle horror games well. You can give me a Hello Kitty game, tell me it's horror, I'll be scared to start it. Just name it horror, and I'll be fucking terrified of it. For some reason, I can't do horror games. Like it's, I don't know. Like for example, I played Home Sweet Home like the last weekend with Martin. He was in the call with me, like guiding me.
Hello.
And the day before, was it? I think it was the day before that. I planned on playing that game. I sat in that menu of the game for 4 hours without even daring to press play. I had 4 hours played in the game without even starting it because I was too scared to start the game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
By the
so
way, Redox,
video
can you
game
tell them
menus.
Wait, hold on. Redox, can you tell them what happened while you were waiting?
Okay, yeah, sure. So this is actually really fucking amazing. Like it's a genius fucking move by the guys who made the game, but it made me like not be able to play it for even longer. So, like I said, I was in there for 4 hours. After 2 hours, like I was just sitting there like contemplating. I had my OBS everything set up to like start playing the game, and also just contemplating if I should really play it now or not. Then all of a sudden, a lamp that in the main menu, like you see bars and like trash bags and like a lamp, you know, like what's it called, those long ass lamps, like it's just hanging from the ceiling, like swinging back and forth. After 2 hours, it fell down and exploded. It scared the living fuck out of me.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some games that do that to you if you linger too long.
But
And then-
2 hours. It took 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean,
It
there's this
kind of-
famous,
kind
famous scare in Black and White, I think it is, which is not a horror game, but if you play that for long enough, the game will start whispering your name, which is kind
Oh.
of creepy. And it kind of took that name from, I don't know, maybe your computer name or
Yeah,
something.
your
It scanned your
username.
computer for your name, basically. And if it found it, after like 2 or 3 hours in game, it suddenly will start to whisper your name.
I believe it's your username.
Yeah, or
You know what
that.
I'd do if that happened? I'd shut the game off, uninstall it, reinstall my computer, throw my computer out, burn it, buy a new computer. Done.
I'd start calling a priest and maybe the Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
Something
When
like
I
that,
first time had that happen, that was fucking scary. Believe me. I looked around the
It's
room
just like-
several times.
It would whisper Relog's real name, and I would be like, wrong guy.
He'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Where is he?"
Wrong number, dude. Wrong number.
Yeah.
Well,
Or he's
call
wrong
guys.
number. Call this number instead.
Yeah, just start saying Martin.
Yeah.
He's not gonna run away scared. He's actually gonna run towards you, looking for you. I promise you.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
He's just gonna be like, "Yes, where's the bed?"
Okay, never mind then. Never mind
He's
then.
just gonna be like, "There's a ghost wanting to molest me." Yes.
Yes. Does she have titties?
All right.
My ass is getting haunted tonight.
Oh yeah. Oh my. Oh
Fuck you, dog.
my.
Did who else didn't go yet?
I didn't. I guess what would, unless someone else wants to go before me.
Go ahead.
All right. I guess what would, kind of make me have chills in a psychological horror game, it's when, this may sound kind of mundane, but when I see or hear things off in the distance that I can't, like, my player character has no method of reaching or finding out anything about it unless I hack the game or something. Like, you guys will probably laugh at this, but one of the scariest games I ever played was the PlayStation 1 version of Doom. Any of you guys familiar with that version of Doom?
I know that the only
Kinda.
thing I know about it is that it had different kind of music.
It had different music and different sounds to make it seem more creepy and ambient and crap. So like when you hear like monsters off in the distance, it sounds all echoey, and they made them sound more ferocious. So like hearing those monsters groaning off in the distance in these dark areas, because they like changed the lighting in the Doom game in that version of Doom to make it scarier. Just hearing and seeing all that stuff, and again going back to Silent Hill 2. What's that noise?
It's Shadow Pyro's phone.
Oh, answer
My
your
bad.
phone, bro. Anyway,
It's those
it's
ghosts.
always, yeah, but so the ghosts, they're calling you. It would be, I guess what I'm trying to say is more like the element of the unknown is what chills me out. Like, you only get vague details about stuff that's off in the distance, or stuff that's, you're coming towards or is coming towards you, but it's just enough to make you ponder like what it could be. Like in Silent Hill 4, for example. I don't know if you guys played enough into that, where you're in the where you're going down this spiral staircase repeatedly, and there's all kinds of creepy stuff in the background that you just want to stop and look at and wonder what the hell that is. Stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I like in a survival horror, psychological horror kind of game. Like the kind that even when it's sort of presented to you, it gives a vibe of the unknown or the creepiness that you have no idea what this could be, but if I'm pretty sure it's damn near unpleasant.
I definitely agree with you on that one, because once again, the game I played this weekend, it was like a part where you're supposed to face a really fucking large dude, But I looked out the window in the game, and you saw like far away. You saw like a big, a purple light, like floating by, like really far away, like something walking there. Like I still don't know what it is. I've completed the part with the big guy. I still don't know what the fuck that thing was. It still creeped me the fuck out.
What game?
Home Sweet Home.
Oh, I don't think I played that one.
Play it. It's terrifying.
What's it on?
PC.
What year did it come
It's
out?
the game with the light, by the way, that he talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. Hang on, I can look that up real quick.
Because if it's
Wait.
too new, my computer probably won't be able to play it.
Relogs, this is not how you get views on YouTube. Tell them to look up your stream of it instead.
Yeah, there you go.
You're doing it wrong.
It's from 2007.
Oh, my computer might actually be able to run it now. Awesome.
Yeah, but
it's
stuff like
it's
that
a
is
quick thing.
definitely scary. I can agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. We move on.
Sure, I don't have anything else to add.
Sure.
No objections from me.
Alright, sure, why not?
Yeah, good.
Alright. No, number 14, that was a question about the VR. Do you think virtual reality adds anything to the table, especially when it comes to psychological horror genre, in your own personal opinion? And we kind of discussed this already, but I'm gonna elaborate further on it. I think it definitely can, but it overall depends on how it's done, just like with any genre, you know? It depends on how it's done.
I would actually.
There's some really good horror games for the VR. As much as there's so many horror games that are total ass on the VR. So, yeah.
Well, I would actually say for the psychological horror genre, it actually doesn't do that much. Because psychological horror should mostly happen in your mind and not on the screen. It helps a lot with jump scares, I can tell you that. That definitely. Jump scares are a whole lot scarier. Like a metric fuck ton scarier in VR. But psychological horror, I wouldn't say it really enhances that. The payoff of the jump scare will be bigger. But I don't know. As well, as I said before, you tend to miss jump scares in VR. I did a lot. Because you look the other way. You're not forced to look in a certain way. And sometimes you glitch through a wall or something like that. So I don't really think it helps psychological horror. It helps like classical jump scare horror.
I think as far as the jump scare is concerned, that has to do more with the sound design. The sound design is very, very key when it comes to that, because if you have the right sound cues and if you set it up right, then it plays along well. Because you could just turn down the volume on like some of these first-person jump scares, and the guy pops up or whatever, but it's not scary because you just don't have that sound cue.
Yeah, that helps, I guess. But if you compare it to like normal jump scares, turning down the volume helps. But what you can't do in VR, what you could do in normal games, is just look away, turn away from the screen. That you can't do that in VR really, because it happens all around you basically. You might miss the jump scare, but it's still, yeah, you can. It's all dark around you, and I don't know. I really think it helps jump scares, but yeah, I don't think it's really something that will help psychological horror that much.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'd say like maybe the VR could help in a psychological sense if you can use the VR to like maybe explore things, like I guess maybe for the immersion, like have those controllers where you can where it'd be like you're moving your hands around. You'd probably have just like severed arms floating around, and that would just completely kill it whatsoever. I personally wouldn't really go for the VR because again, it's just, another screen. Like I think the best way to experience psychological horror, you don't really need VR, just like have your TV on, your monitor, whatever, maybe darken the room a little bit and just turn off all the sound, like turn off your phone, shut the window in case there's noise going on outside. I don't think really, in my personal opinion, as far as I'm aware, VR, I don't think it can unless there's like some big new breakthrough that someone can do with a VR headset to make, psychological horror more engrossing and immersive. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head unless you guys know of anything.
No, there's also the problem with the movement in VR that really breaks a lot of immersion in games. That most of the time you move via teleport in VR, and that takes you right out of the game most of the time. So unless they fix that, get a good movement system going for VR, then yeah, that's something that will take you out of the horror experience.
Yeah, I'd say if you use VR for a horror game, it should be a sit-down VR type. Like not stand up and walk around. You sit down and just have the headset as the screen, nothing else.
And have play the game with a controller or a keyboard and mouse or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the most effective solution, actually.
What if a VR horror game has a part where it makes you think that there's something in the room with you
fuck that
as you're playing VR, but you can't see it?
I would not play that game because that would annoy.
If it can fuck with your mind that much that you actually think that, then holy shit, then it's a good game.
I think that idea is getting worked on. I think that idea might be getting worked on as we speak. I'm sure of it.
What you can do, of course, the VR, at least the Vive headset has a front camera. You know what you could do with that?
Oh, you could fucking stop
augmented reality.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not okay.
That would, oh god, that would fuck me up.
Yeah.
I'm right behind you.
Yes.
Even if
holy shit.
It would work.
That would work so well.
You open up your fridge and there's like a monster that jumps out at you.
Stop it.
Really?
But yeah, like getting back to that thing, like where you said where they're supposed to trick you that something else is in the room. Like, have you guys seen the new technology that they're working on in Japan with the movie theaters, where they have they show you a movie, but instead of it's like 3D, but the monsters and shit are actually walking in the aisles, and they can come up from underneath your seat and grab onto you, and you'll feel it.
Oh shit!
Oh, dude, that's gonna cause that's gonna kill some old people who want to go see that movie or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna implement that. If they implement that in a game, they won't just kill old people; they'll kill me as well.
Yes,
100%.
You should play it, Vlogs.
I'm
gonna
play
the game, and some guy goes through your door. Like you're sitting in your chair playing this VR headset, and then some guy comes through your door and he's like, "Hi, I'm with the people who played this game. I'm gonna grab your ankles."
I already have that at home. I have 2 cats who periodically touch my leg when I play, and that scares the shit out of me already. So
maybe your cats are
the funniest thing ever. The game would be like, "Look in your camera," and he would show the camera feed or whatever. And then I just see my dad walking past half naked.
Hello.
That would scare the living shit out of me still, though.
They get a soda. That would be funny.
Yes.
Yeah. But what if you do that? If a game prompts you to look in your camera and you actually have someone standing in front of you when it does. Like that thing you said about with the camera, if they change if they add something a 3D picture in front of you.
Yeah, some glowing eyes in the dark or something.
That would fuck me up.
Oh yeah,
me too. It'd probably be some kind of augmented VR game. You could also play with your phone or something. I guess is a secondary component.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the ghost can bother you while you're at work or something.
As you're playing the game, your phone will go off and you'll get weird text messages, but it's actually from the game itself.
Oh yeah, it could take your if you take selfies, it would take these and then add something in the background.
Right,
Oh.
like you take a
Oh.
selfie of yourself, and there's like a picture of a vampire or something in the background.
Yes.
It would
I'm
have to
not
be
gonna-
like directly. It would have to be directly from an app, though.
Yeah, I guess.
And it would have to like. I guess you would have to be able to allow the app to have access to certain other apps because it would have to be paired up with it. But I think-
Though that would be creepy if they were like hackers using that kind of game to get people's, geological data of their house or something.
what the fuck?
Oh,
There is something, I'm not sure it's along those lines, but there's something very creepy around the darknet that you can play. But I wouldn't recommend it because dark web is scary and dangerous. But there is a game
Yeah.
on it.
I'm
Yeah,
not
well,
going near that thing,
no.
the dark web.
Like speaking of that shit, like imagine like for like like making an account for that game, you enter your phone number, and it will call you with like weird fucking voices and shit.
Oh
Okay.
god,
You
yes.
know,
No,
they've
you-
done that
I'm legit, I'm legit freaked out. Like
Dave.
I'm uncomfortable right now.
Wasn't there a thing like that in Japan where you could call a number and it would do like the ring thing as a promo?
Yeah.
It would be like
well,
7 days.
well, the thing with that shit was like it would keep going, like it wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
It would like you called up a pissed telemarketer and you fucked up. But it was
But
scary.
yeah, I would say we're drifting kind of off topic.
Yeah.
A
Good
little bit.
call.
Still scared me though.
Everything scares you.
Boo!
So are we going to the final question?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
no.
Yes.
That was quick.
I'm done.
We didn't even get to reading the question. He's just like, no. To sign off this podcast, if someone paid you $1 million to visit Silent Hill alone, what would be your answer, and what weapon would you take? First of all, you'd be fucking dumb unless if you get me the alien abduction ending or the fucking what is it, the dog ending from Silent Hill 2. Although I'd rather be abducted by Harry Mason and James, so that way they can give me a fucking blunt or something in the spaceship.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But as far as like a weapon, dude, take the fucking crowbar. Like the crowbar is gonna be the best fucking weapon, hands down, or a pipe.
Yeah, because a crowbar is like solid steel. I don't think you'd be able to destroy those under your own power,
I will say this. Yes, if I get the leave ending and where's my Spaz 12?
I thought you were gonna say, "Where's my sexy beam?"
Yes.
Well, the thing is, the gamer in me would say, yes, of course I would go, because I'm so much smarter than all the characters in that game, and I will totally ace that. But yeah, no, probably not. But weapon-wise, yeah, probably some kind of melee weapon, something very solid. I don't know, like maybe an axe or a mace or something like that. Something you could just smash people's faces in, and that does not take a lot of skill to use. Something like that.
I think I'd go. The inquisitive person in me would say, yeah, let's see what crazy contraptions that my mind can think of for the guilt or whatever would have. And I think I've got a good hold on what I don't like and all that jazz about myself. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. And as long as I have a guarantee I can leave, that's a good thing. For weapon, does it have to be like a normal weapon? Because I'd probably want to take Pandora's box.
It would have
so
to.
you wanna
I'm
be
guessing
Dante?
like a conventional
Dante.
weapon, like a sword or a gun or something. That's what I'm guessing.
If we're going with regular weapons, I would say something along the lines like a crowbar used to open doors and everything. But if I'm going to be flashy, I'm going to take a sword.
Heck yeah.
Shadow of Pyro wants to be Dante for the day.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, that's it. Yep.
I can relate to that.
No one is choosing a good weapon like a Spaz 12. It mows through
Fuck
everything.
off.
It mows through
You will-
elephants. It
You will
mows
run
through
out of ammo
elephants.
after 1
Okay.
minute. I guarantee
Ow.
you that.
I
Should
can
I
also
bring a
open
meat
doors
jar?
with the thing. It mows
Sir, I'm gonna
elephants.
stop you. Look, I'm gonna stop you right there because if you didn't fucking pick an AA12, then you fucked up.
True.
I agree.
Okay,
True.
look. Okay, I know this is really off topic, but a real AA12 you could literally hold with 2 fingers while it's going off in full auto. It's that easy to
You know,
control.
This question doesn't specify if stuff is gonna happen when you arrive at Silent Hill. What if you arrive there and it's just a regular town and you're like, oh fuck this, I'm out.
Martin?
yeah, that's a good point.
I was actually going to bring that up because of the how the town's spiritual power works. Like if it was just any of us and we went there, it would just be a normal town. We'd see kids walking home from school, people driving their cars. But if we got called to the town by its power, like what happened in Silent Hill 2, that's when the freaky shit would happen.
I just imagine you're arriving there like packed full with weapons, and there's just children all around you.
Like the guy from Doom, you're packed like a chain gun and 2 different shotguns and a BFG and maybe a chainsaw.
Well,
I going there.
I feel like if I went there, I would sort of have a similar experience to James, only because of like any personal depression, and then just you know how it's implied in the story with like some of the or not the story, but with some of the enemies that he was really like lustful and would like pretty much masturbate or cheat on Mary.
Yeah, that was primarily why a lot of the monsters had like sexualized female features. Like the lying figure had like the hips and the bust of a woman. The nurses, even those hanging things had like those hanging things on the grates had like feminine features on them.
Yeah. So I feel like like monsters similar to that I would encounter. Because if I'm not mistaken, if the town only if you're like pure and free of sin, you don't really see anything. But
yeah,
if you're
I like how you just fully admitted to being filled with lust.
Well, aren't you?
Yeah, you got a problem with that? I like titties.
We all.
I like dick, so no, I don't have a problem with that.
So
I like big butts, and I cannot lie.
Yeah. Thick ass thighs and titties.
I actually have a funny answer for this. I would go because it's $1 million. I could probably live off that for the rest of my life,
if you survive.
And
If you live.
yeah, if I live, and the weapon I would take with me, simply because if you played the Silent Hill games, except for the bosses, a lot of the monsters in that game aren't very strong. You ever notice that? Like they're despite how creepy and disturbing a lot of the monsters are, it's not really that hard to kill them. So I would say maybe I'd probably bring like a hand axe, because that was the deadliest weapon in Silent Hill 4. I don't know what I'd see though. I'd probably see, like, if I was called to the town's power, I'd probably see like a bunch of stuff related to pets, because when I was growing up, I had a lot of attachment to my pets, so I often felt really sad when my first dog ran away, or when my first cat got sick and died.
So you're telling me you think you're gonna survive like motherfucking hellhounds and weird ass cats climbing all over the fucking place with a hand axe?
This is why you bring shotguns.
Agreed.
Yeah, but here's the problem: a shotgun eventually runs out of ammo. Unless
and you run out of stamina.
Whereas like there's been dog and cat monsters in Silent Hill games for a long time, and I always, like in Silent Hill 1, those dog monsters, so easy to bring down with the lead pipe. Same thing with 4, lead pipe or the hand axe, so easy to bring them down.
Well,
awesome, but you'd probably run out of stamina quite fast.
Although I will say you might have a point with the shotgun, because then if you run out of ammo, you could just turn it into a bat and be fucking Majima Goro from Yakuza for the day.
like
fucking
just
bat off baseballs with the shotguns and start beating them like it's a shotgun.
Hold the shotgun by the barrel like it's a baseball bat or something.
That is pure psychological horror. It's just Majima in your head being like, "This is the part where you're supposed to laugh." Oh yeah.
Here's the irony: I'm
Yeah.
beating you to death with a gun.
Bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
Right, so my answer for that one is everyone already know. Like the gamer in me would say, fuck you, go to hell. The me in me should say, fuck no! And
Okay.
I would
That's
definitely
$1
not do
million.
it. I don't give a shit. You can give me $100 million and I'd probably do it, but no, I would not do it. No.
I'd maybe go if I know that the bosses are all work according to the system from Silent Hill 1, which is if you go into the fight with 0 bullets, the bosses automatically die.
That's how you can beat the final boss in
Yeah.
Silent Hill 1. Just have no ammo whatsoever, and it'll just drop dead.
Yeah, if I knew ahead of time that I'll just get a gun with no bullets, and then everything just immediately dies.
Or just before you go in the room, just take all your bullets and stuff and just throw them off like a cliff or something.
That's my strategy. Go into Silent Hill and see all my fucked up shit in my head.
I like
Sounds
that.
good.
I like the fact like you go there, like the weapon you take is like a shotgun with no ammo. And you
Yeah.
get there and it's not like the game. You get to face the pyramid head without anything.
Good luck.
Or they would be like, monsters that are like covered with metal plating, so your shotgun's utterly useless.
But he still
not
doesn't
if
have any
you
bullets.
have armor piercing rounds, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Depends on what kind of metal. It could be Kevlar.
Mm.
Just the thick, rusty metal that Silent Hill games have on a lot of things.
And you'll find out at the end that we've listening to way too much metal music.
Oh my god, I know what Renegade Silent Hill would be.
What?
It would just be Barney
Pandas.
from Barney. Like the dinosaur, whatever.
He'd be
Blaming
chased.
him for everything.
He would have like what's the green dinosaur's name on that show? Bedbot or whatever. It'd be chasing that thing would be
yes.
the pyramid head to Ren.
He'll be in the hospital and then sexy, just all around.
All right.
Yeah.
I have nothing
Good-
else to add to
good
that
stuff.
though.
Neither.
That's great. We made it through 15 questions in over 3 hours.
Ooh.
Holy
Jeez
shit.
Louise.
Yeah, this is the longest fucking podcast
Yeah,
we've
we just
done.
passed 3 hours.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Well, I mean, it was a great discussion.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Fucking loved it.
even though we kind of diverged into some stuff, it all kind of tied back and we, brought up a lot of different points and stuff like that. So I think, despite it being very long, it was a very entertaining conversation.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
would say so.
Indeed.
Yes.
So, you want to wrap up?
No.
Yeah. So you all can find me as biodevil_dom on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Wait, who said you could plug your shit, Dom?
We always plug our shit, you faggot.
God.
You can find me as Doper WTE on YouTube and Doper WTEGE _ on Twitter, where I do things sometimes.
Yes. Shadow Pyro, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube under DS Para. I do stuff and videos and things.
Okay.
I like the things part.
Okay, you can find me on YouTube under PsychoRender. You can find me on Twitter under PsychoRender. Also, shoutouts to Barney. I mean Renegade. There you go. Alright, Redox, you're next.
Alright, you can find me at Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube as Relux Gaming.
Alright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, everyone got to the end of this point.
Hopefully.
All right. So you can find me as Shadow1990CH on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, even though I don't stream that much. But anyway, I'm playing games and do VR stuff weekly, so come and check it out.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at The Lost Jojo. You could find me on YouTube under the name Mr. Bastard Gamer, all one word. I'm going to be doing for Halloween a let's play of Silent Hill 2, the PC version, with mods that put it in proper HD. You will be seeing part 1 of it on the Infinite Ammo Syndicate channel, and the rest will be on my channel. And I'm also doing a complete playthrough of the entire Phantasy Star series in celebration of the first game's 30th anniversary. I'm 6 parts into Phantasy Star 1 so far, and I'm gonna do every single one up until PSO online.
All right, perfect. Oh, as some extra announcements, Dom, are you making a stream on Friday?
Either Friday or Saturday. One of those 2 days. It really depends. I want to do it on Friday, but it just really depends on how my work day is on that day. But launch weekend of the Evil Within on either Friday the 13th or Friday the 14th. Friday the 14th. Saturday the 14th, not Friday. But Friday the 13th or Saturday the 14th, one of those 2 days, I will be streaming the game. I will stream a good chunk of the game, probably from like the first chapter all the way up until maybe the fourth or fifth. I do want to play that game on my own time, so I won't be streaming the entire thing, but I do want to do a good portion of the game for you guys to check out. And of course, I just have to set it up and all that too. So
I gotta add something in there. When we're talking about psychological horror, having Friday both on 13th and 14th, that's some horror shit right there.
yeah. We have 2 Fridays in the week now.
In my restless dreams, I see that date, Friday the 14th. You promised me it was going to be Friday the 13th, Dom, but it never came.
From that point onward, every day is going to be Friday.
Oh no!
Groundhog.
Now I'm alone here now in my misguided date.
Also,
Waiting for
another
you.
announcement. Watch Redog's stream this Saturday as well. So
Yes.
you can watch if you have more
Lot-
time.
It's probably going to be awesome.
He's gonna stream the rest of
horror
Horror
games.
Zone.
Yeah, and I might as well stream the Evil Within too.
Cool.
Although you're
Hell
doing
yeah.
that on your own, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna play that game myself. as well.
Yeah, it's so good.
Aha!
So, what the?
The
So that
previous guy. All right, take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
The
See you
stream is
later.
brought to you by Health Drink.
Watch
Goodbye.
your shit. Fuck Renegade. Take care.
Blame Renegade. See you next time.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah,
blame
brother.
them.